Mother's Day is almost here, and you can get her the most beautiful time-tested gift around. A watch she can wear every day from Movement. Whether your mom is into classic dress watches, rare and refined ceramics, or tried-and-true bestsellers, Movement has something she'll love. And right now, everything at Movement is up to 50% off site-wide during their Mother's Day sale. A watch is a gift that celebrates all the time you spent with mom. And a Movement watch is even more than that. Movement uses industry-leading materials for their fresh modern watch designs, from technically complex ceramics to vintage-inspired style. All for an incredible value your wrist and wallet will both love. And with one-size-fits-all convenience and fast free shipping and returns, it's a stress-free shopping experience. Save big on the best Mother's Day gift ever with Movement. Get up to 50% off site-wide during their Mother's Day sale at mvmt.com. Again, that's up to 50% off at mvmt.com.
If you're in business, you probably have a website, but can your site handle your growth? How many visitors before your site slows down or crashes? What about storage and data security? From web hosting to virtual servers, Pair Networks provides the online infrastructure you need to start, grow, and flourish. When it comes to security and updates, don't worry, we've got you covered. Our 24/7 US-based customer support is the best in the industry. No frustrating chatbots or sitting on hold for hours. Check out pair.com today to learn more. That's PAIR.com.
All right, before we start the episode today, I got to give a big shout out to Laurie Dawn, who is our newest Patreon subscriber. She was the guest on the past episode and became a subscriber over the last couple of weeks. So big shout out to Laurie Dawn for that. And if you want to find out more about how to help financially support the show to keep it going and growing, then you need to go to patreon.com/bigtruth, and you can check out everything there. There's 4 different levels of support, and they all come with their own exclusives and benefits and whatnot. So check it out, patreon.com/bigtruth. Now, if you need vintage motorcycle parts or even new motorcycle parts or apparel or knives or leather goods and whatnot, you need to check out Old Bike Barn over at oldbikebarn.com. On Instagram, simply at Old Bike Barn. They got everything you need for your Harley and more importantly, your vintage Japanese bike, because we get asked about old Japanese bikes a lot, and we don't have a lot of parts for that. We're mostly just set up for Harley and some Triumph. So I always send people over to go talk to my man Bear over at oldbikebarn.com. Check him out, oldbikebarn.com, and on Instagram at oldbikebarn.com. Simply at Old Bike Barn. All right. It's been a little while since I've done these commercials, so and I have no scripts. I just freestyle it, so bear with me. If you need CBD oil and you don't know where to go, there's a million different companies and brands and whatnot out there. Most of them, quite honestly, are charlatans. You need to check out Cradle Lake Clear over at cradlelakeclear.com. They have the most cleanest, most refined, highest, purest grade CBD oil out there, and some of the best manufacturing practices on the market. Go over to cradlelakeclear.com. They walk you through everything. They show you how their stuff is made and talk about their different formulations and whatnot. They got a bunch of different formulas. So I use it every night, sleep like a baby. cradlelakeclear.com. Use the promo code BIGTRUTH at checkout. You get a good discount off your order. Now, if you also maybe have a pet with a little bit of anxiety, is a little skittish, or has some inflammation issues, some inflammatory problems or whatnot, you need to check out vetcs.com. And VetCS is the best CBD oil specifically for for pets on the market. It was founded by a vet and a vet tech. They're out of Colorado. Check them out, vetcs.com. They got formulations for your dog, for your cat, or for your horse. And if you use the promo code BIGTRUTH at checkout there, you get 20% off your order there. I believe it's either 10 or 20%. I'm sorry. So that's that. Now, if you're looking for some clothes, spring's turning into summer. You need a new wardrobe. It's getting hot out there. You need some tank tops or whatnot. Go check out Omerta at omertamia.com or on Instagram and all the social media simply at Omertamia, which is OMERTAMIA, the most real and legit streetwear brand out there. It ain't by culture vultures. It's by motherfuckers that live and breathe the lifestyle. Two of my brothers run this company. And if you use promo code Big Truth at checkout, you get 20% off your order there. Now, if you're still looking for clothes, but you're a little off kilter, you like to play Black Sabbath records backwards, you're into the occult, or you're reading the all of Aleister Crowley's works, or you know what I mean, you're a little off. You might be into serial killers. You like to read up on cult leaders, shit like that. But you're also into like choppers and show vans and cool shit like that. Then you will like Heavy, which is a clothing company run by my man Zach Doom. And you can find them at heavy.bigcartel.com or on Instagram simply at Heavy Clothing. They got all kinds of cool antisocial clothing items and nefarious wares. Check them out there. Chop Cult. If you want more information about, if you're into bikes and riding and chopping bikes and going to motorcycle events and everything like that, you need to go to chopcult.com, the biggest online resource and message board set up for motorcycle riders. They also have an events page that has all the events laid out by date and by location. And they have one of my favorite parts is the online message board. I mean, the online swap meet where you can buy, sell, and trade and swap parts, and absolutely free to join. You don't got to put no credit card down or nothing weird. So go check them out, chopcult.com, and on all the social medias, simply at Chop Cult. If you find yourself in the unfortunate position where you are in a motorcycle accident, guess what? If you're a rider, there's two kinds of riders, those that have gone down and those that are probably going to go down. It's an unfortunate truth, right? You need to check out Law Tigers over at lawtigers.com. It's a motorcycle accident law firm founded for riders by riders. So go over to the main page there, lawtigers.com, or go on Instagram and type in Law Tigers plus the name of your state, and you can get in touch with your local regional office that way. If you're still looking for more clothing or records, check out Pitchfork over at pitchforkny.com, Pitchfork, New York. That's the clothing company that all your favorite bands are rocking. So check them out, pitchforkny.com. They also put out all kinds of cool limited edition records. They had a 7-inch series. That was a compilation 7-inch series. They just put out a new New York Hardcore 12-inch compilation. Check all of that out, pitchforkny.com. If you still looking for more clothes, or you need parts for your motorcycle or whatnot, check out my shop, Chopperhead. We're a full-service brick-and-mortar motorcycle shop, which means you can come in. We're not operating out of a warehouse or a fucking storage unit or our parents' basement or some bullshit like that. It's a full-service brick-and-mortar motorcycle shop with a shop, a showroom, parts counter, and all that stuff. So whatever you need, we have it. If we don't have it in stock, we can have it usually within a day, depending on what it is. But we do mail order and whatnot. So you can go to chopperhead.com for that, or come by the shop, 13 County Road, East Freetown, Massachusetts, 508-995-6764. Last but not least, check out the podcast website over at www.bigtruthpodcast.com. All the show information's there. All the episodes are up there. And please, if you like this podcast, if you like this episode, if you like the podcast in general, hit like, hit subscribe, leave a review, leave a comment, and spread the word. And without further ado, let's get into it right now.
The Big Truth Podcast. Laying down the hatches! Get ready!
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
Yes, once again, we have liftoff. I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Big Truth Podcast. And my guest today needs no introduction. I'm just going to say a couple bands, and you'll probably figure out who it is. If you know who Rosemary's Babies is, if you know who Samhain is, or if you know who Danzig is, he's the common denominator for all three of those things. I want to welcome Eerie Vaughn today. Eerie, what's going on, bro?
Nothing much. Glad to be here. How you doing?
Good, absolutely, absolutely. I'm gonna get that New York, that New Jersey accent coming back because I know you've been down south for a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It depends. You know how it is. If you go back to the old neighborhood or whatever,
Yeah.
or you talk to somebody on the phone before you know it, or your mom or something, But yeah. Oh, I got plenty of southern stuff come after I've been in the South for like 15 years, maybe longer.
Yeah.
And you pick up stuff like you wouldn't believe. So
I know.
yeah, it goes back and forth.
Absolutely. You beat the curve too, because like I know Tennessee's hot right now, man. So many people moving down there. It's probably fucking up your housing market over there,
Oh man, the whole deal was it was turning into like what Austin was in the 70s.
Yeah.
When all like Willie Nelson and all those guys moved down there, and then it became like Haight-Ashbury in the 60s, that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, Nashville, and especially East Nashville where I was living, was just blowing up like you wouldn't believe. And even since we've been away for about a year, the housing just going nuts. And you can't get a house in that neighborhood, which used to be nothing but a crack neighborhood like 10, 15 years ago, for less than like $450,000 or $500,000.
Yeah.
So and the rent is just crazy, and they keep building, and there's nowhere to put anybody. So it's pretty much like they said in Austin. It's like, yeah, we're full up. Stay away.
Yeah,
don't move here.
The quote is met. We're done. Yeah.
We're done. Yeah, you go somewhere else.
I get it, man. I remember I used to go out to Austin a lot for a lot of my friends. We'd ride out there and we'd go out there and have a blast. And you could buy houses for like $80,000 in the city. And I was like, damn, dude, I should buy something out here. Because, Boston was fucking crazy. And then I was like, and that's one of my biggest mistakes in life or regrets is that I didn't when they were like $80,000. Like, I mean, people still had like goats in the yard and shit in the middle of the city. You know what I mean? Because Boston was, the weird place, whatever. But now that same house is like probably $400,000 or $500,000 easily, Like,
yeah. One of my friends, he's in the Big Boys from Austin.
Yeah.
And he still has the same house that he had in the early 80s, whenever,
yeah.
I don't know how he came. I never got around to ask him. Either he bought it or maybe it was in the family or something, but he's still there. And I can't even imagine what the place is like, how much it would go for now,
He's probably like the bane of the existence in the neighborhood tue, like the last old school holdout, you know what I mean?
You never know.
Yeah.
But, I have another friend of mine just like moved to Austin a couple of years ago, and I'm just like, yeah, but it's so hot down there.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's great, but it's hot.
But you guys got humidity though, right? Like crazy humidity.
Oh yeah, it's like a rainforest here sometimes. It's ridiculous. But in Nashville, it was crazy. It rained like every day, and for 5 minutes at least. But it rained. I actually checked on it, and it said Nashville got more rain per year than Seattle. And I was just like, oh, okay. That's no wonder everybody's depressed.
Yeah. But at least you got sun, though. You know what I mean? Seattle's missing a little bit of that, right?
That helps. You get a little bit of sun, but it's right on the river and had like a major flood that went all like it destroyed all this old gear and guitars and stuff. It was like I can't remember how many years ago, but all these guys had stuff in warehouses, and like the whole downtown flooded. And I mean, like everything was underwater, so we lost a lot of shit. So when it rains, they freak out because it's a monsoon for about 5 minutes, and then it stops, and then it does it again 5 minutes later.
Yeah,
and that's how it just those flash floods come up.
Yeah,
so we don't.
The rain doesn't have anywhere to go, so it just
Yeah. The river is also full up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, man. So I gotta end the debate because this is a debate a friend of mine had for years. So as an official member, you'll know. When we were kids, we always called Samhain, and then you always got these motherfuckers that want to be, well, the real pronunciation is Samhain, So what did you guys used to call it? Did you just call it Samhain?
No, yeah, we knew what it was. I would say it's pronounced Samhain. And whatever, it's like yeah, everything has an old pronunciation in it, most likely.
Sure.
But yeah, it was just like that's too confusing. Plus, Samhain's a better name anyway.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna go with that. It's like So we never really, we never really said nothing about it unless somebody asked you what band you're in. We used to just say, you wouldn't know. But yeah, Sam Hain's just fine with us.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, you started your early, I guess, punk career off as a photographer, and then went over to drums and then bass, and then I know you've had a whole career post Danzig with a bunch of solo records and of different genres, and very interesting and career, like where you've experimented and done a lot of different things. So it's interesting, and I know a lot of people would be stoked to kind of hear your story. So why don't we just kind of backpedal to the beginning and go back to Lodi, New Jersey in the 70s, late 70s, and kind of find out how Eerie Von came to be.
Yeah. I started playing drums like real early. I had a good friend. I went to first day kindergarten. We were in class, and we went all the way through high school together. And he was a drummer, and he was in the fife and drum corps. And that was from when parades happen. The guys that play that the fife and drum people.
Yep.
So he was really good at it, and I think we were like I was interested. Always interested in music anyway, but it was kind of like, you go down to boys club, you buy a pair of sticks, and you pay the teacher like $5 every time you go, and this guy will teach you how to play drums. And if you get good enough, they'll ask you to join the fife and drum corps or whatever. And my friend was like, yeah, he could play all that stuff, but he was at heart, he was more like a rock and roller, So he just, he wasn't that, playing in the band in the high school, he had long hair and stuff. And it's just like, I was like, I can't believe you're still doing this. He's like, I still like it, but yeah. So I started playing drums, and I had this big ass sticks, this big marching sticks like Chuck used to use, and just did that for a while, but I didn't like the teacher. He was real mean. And one of those guys is like, well, why can't you just do it right? That kind of, because they're like, they can do it and they're just so good at it. It's like, yeah, but you don't remember when you were like 8 years old and you couldn't play, So I kind of like, I didn't really, yeah, kind of, some people can't teach, they can't get their point across. Everybody's come across teachers who they just couldn't reach you.
Yeah. And
other teachers just were like, that's why you have your favorite teacher, because they understood where you were coming from. You understood them. Other ones just get up and say, okay, here's the problem on the board, and that's it,
Yeah.
But so I was doing that, and then I just, I got more. That around the same time I started getting into photography. My dad got a camera, and he kind of taught me whatever he knew, and he was learning from other people. And the guy at the photo shop he's buying lenses from and stuff. So I was getting more into photography by the time I got to be like, I don't know, freshman year, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
That was one of my big classes, was like, an intro to the dark room and all that stuff. So I had a friend who already showed me how to make prints and stuff. He had his own dark room, but this was like formal, stuff. And that's when I started making t-shirts, and like everything happened like the freshman year, it's a big change from, middle school. And a lot more people you don't know, a lot of older people, people want to beat you up, stuff like that, So yeah, just and did a lot of photography. Always, that was the easy way to get out of class too, It's like, I got to go shoot the Glee Club or a football. I got to go take pictures of football players. So, I'll be back in 10 minutes.
That's probably a good way to navigate the school too. Like, don't beat me up, motherfucker. I'm going to be taking your picture for whatever, for the paper or the yearbook or whatever.
Yeah, totally did that. That's all the football players that were like, just would push you against the wall when they walk down the hallway anyway,
Yeah.
I'd be on the field at the game, make sure I got pictures of everybody, and then I would make prints, and I would say, hey, that was a great game. Hey, I got this picture for you. You should give it to your mom or whatever,
Yeah.
And then just do that. And the ones that were particularly, pricks, he just said, oh, yeah, I got you. Hey, I got you another picture, whatever. Oh, can you make a copy for my girlfriend? Sure, no problem. Then they wouldn't beat you up,
Yeah.
Like, oh, you don't want to beat up the guy. He takes pictures of us, and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So,
yeah. So yeah, that was a good thing, and so yeah. Then basically, when me and Doyle we became friends in like 7th or 8th grade. We ate lunch every day together. Like they gave us assigned tables and stuff, and so we sat across from each other every day for a year or two, and got to be friends. And then freshman year, we were in gym and stuff like that, but we hung out. And it was just one day he was just like, you're still playing the drums? I said, nah, not as much as I used to and stuff. He goes, oh, you should get back into it. He said, Misfits always need a drummer, so, you should just go start playing drums again.
It's true, because they had a lot of drum
so it was
changes.
At the time, it was that way. They had a couple different drummers. So I started doing that stuff and just listening to the records and all that shit. But it was just like one day, he came and said,
is this when he was in the Misfits or before he was?
Well, it was before, but, right at the time he came in, he joined the band in 1980, and we were both like 15. He's a couple months younger than me.
Okay.
So we were both 15 in his first show. And so when it was probably after that, because they recorded, and Walk Among Us hadn't come out yet, so that wouldn't come out for another 2 years. So, but he just said one day, why don't you take pictures of the Misfits, because we need pictures of this, that, and the other thing. So we just said, okay, let's do it on Sunday. And I thought it was next Sunday, and it turned out to be this Sunday. And I was not there, and they were all ready to go. And I was playing basketball down the park, and they drove across the grass and up to the fucking fence, and they were just like, come on, what are you doing? And we're like, what? Like, you're taking pictures today. I'm like, I thought that was next week. No, it's today. Come on. So I'd run home, get the camera, get the film, do the whole thing. And that's the first day I met Glenn, because I already knew Jerry, and I was like friends with Doyle, like I said. And so that really started the whole thing, really, like, yeah, I was always interested in music, but when you see somebody who's Glenn's like 10 years older than me, but still, him and Jerry and Doyle, they were making their own records and stuff.
Yeah. And
they were booking their own shows, doing all this stuff, and they made it possible that it wasn't like you had to be on a major label and have some record company come discover you. You could do this on your own. And that's when I really started to get interested into being in a band and being a musician, because it seemed like now you could actually do it.
Yeah, it was more attainable because you could do it yourself.
Yeah. So that was the deal. And I just kept practicing, and then eventually formed my own band, and we got to be better friends with Glenn, and, that was just the way it was, I mean, if the band if Misfits had gone on longer, I probably eventually would have played drums with them.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't happening. And then Glenn was just like, we were pretty friendly then, and Misfits were kind of going in separate directions. So, after we graduated high school, it was kind of like, I was just hanging out with him, and Doyle and Jerry were working all the time. And it was just like, hey, the Misfits are, I'm going to do one last show, and then I want to do a new band. And, he's like, you want to be in the band with me? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be great,
Yeah, man. So
we would just bitch. We would bitch on the phone or hang out and like complain that the guys didn't show up for practice.
Yeah.
It was like, oh yeah, nobody came to rehearsal today, or bass player didn't show up, or it was like, yeah, or we had to do pictures for this or whatever. Nobody wanted to do it. And so he would complain too about the same shit,
Yeah.
That's what happened.
So you guys seem like the more serious guys out of the two bands.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like Glenn decided early on that he was going to do this for the rest of his life. And once I got to a certain point, it was like, yeah, once you put out your first real record, you go on a real tour. Well, it wasn't real, it was a van tour, but it was pretty real then. But, then I decided, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to do this for forever. And some people they like being in the band. They like, getting people to slap them on the back and say, hey, you were great, man. Just like playing football or basketball or whatever, or girls like it, guys get into bands for girls, things like that. No, but I wanted to be serious. So when Glenn was just like, "You want to be in a band?" I'm like, "This guy's already got all this experience." I was like, nobody really cared about the Misfits. I mean, it was just all underground stuff. So it wasn't like he had a big name, but he had a name.
Yeah, sure.
And he wrote good songs. He was a great singer, and the Misfits were cool as fuck. And I was like, yeah, I want to be in a band with this guy.
Fuck yeah.
So that was it. And it was, that was the beginning of the whole thing. It was just like, yeah, why not? And we were, I live in the same town. And eventually I had a car. I could drive him around, so it's like, it made a lot of sense,
Yeah. So before we get into like the Samhain stuff, like, you were still a kid in high school. Misfits come pick you up to do a photo shoot. Did anything come of that photo shoot? That first one you did with them?
Yeah, they used like six or seven or more of my pictures in Walk Among Us. It's on
from that first shoot.
Sleeve the sleeve that goes, holds the record.
Yeah.
One side has lyrics, the other side has pictures. Yeah, like 6 of mine are in there. And then after I shot them at the Cave, they had a show like a month later or whatever, and it was just like, well, come shoot the show. I'm like, okay,
yeah.
So we just go like you would go like sound check time, and help carry the gear in and whatever, and just hang around, and then until the show, and then shoot the show, and then go home and go to school the next day.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I shot them. I went down to Philly with them once. And some shows that were, in New York or whatever. And, I don't know if any of the live stuff is on. Yeah, but they, like I said, they use like 6 of my shots from the Cave and maybe one of the live shows or a couple of live shows. I haven't looked at that sleeve in a long time. So,
sure,
but
yeah.
So that was cool, And
where did you shoot from as a photographer? Did you shoot from the stage or did you shoot from inside the pit?
I shot from wherever I felt like, it was pretty rough.
Yeah.
If you were, I wanted to get stuff from the front. Well, some shows there was nobody there, so that wasn't a problem, or there was people maybe in the pit or on the floor, and then everybody else was on the outside watching,
Yeah.
So I was lucky enough to shoot them a couple of times where there weren't big crowds. And I would just go, well, I think I'll go on stage now. So I would just, sneak around and I'd go on stage. I go by Doyle's side, then I run back around, go by Jerry's side, whatever. Yeah. So it's pretty much whatever I felt like doing.
Sure.
And when I think about it now, it's so crazy because I would take like one picture and move on. Like I didn't stand there and like hit the auto drive because I didn't have one and just go jig, 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 jig and get 8 pictures and go, I'll just take the good one in the middle. Yeah. No, I took one picture, then I went and focused on somebody else.
Yeah.
So I did that the whole time. So you look at my negatives, there's like 72 different photos, like, and like almost 80% of them are good or in focus or whatever. So it's like I got real lucky. But I shot a lot of sports. When in high school, I shot a lot of sports. So that was the whole thing. I played basketball. I played baseball. And then I was too skinny to play football. So I took pictures of football players, and just, and you learn how, like you stand on the sideline and the coach is calling a play. You just go, which way is that play going? They go, it's coming right this way. So now I know the action's coming to me. I set up, get ready. Guy runs right into my lens. There you go. So I did that with the Misfits too, because Jerry and Jerry moved around a lot and Glenn was always like in the crowd, on the ground, he was jumping up and down and doing stuff. Doyle pretty much stood there, but so I had to watch Jerry and go, oh, what's he doing? Okay. He does this, he does this, but he always comes back to where the mic is, like that's at the edge of the stage, that's his stopping point. And if he wants to yell into the mic, so I started focusing on the microphone and watching I've watched the whole show through the lens.
Yeah.
And it's like, here he comes, click.
Yeah.
All right, got it. Then say, okay, what's Glenn doing? Or where's the spot that Glenn's hanging out or whatever. And also, you also got people stage diving and kicking you in the head.
Sure.
And, or just bumping into you and you got to watch out because Jerry couldn't see, he didn't have his glasses on, so he'd be thrashing around, he'd bash you in the head with the bass, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I looked at it as they were a sporting, like shooting sporting event, and it was so much easier because when I did basketball, it's like, where are they going to come? Well, they all want to put the ball in the basket, so they're all coming towards the basket. So okay, well, let's focus from the basket out to about 10 feet, and then they'll come right into focus, and you just
snap it.
You just learn, and you go, oh yeah, it was really fun, and especially when you get good stuff. Like I used to go home and go, I'm never going to sleep if I don't develop this film right now, you know?
Yeah.
So I'd go in the dark room, develop all the film, and look at it and go, oh, I did good, and then go to sleep.
That's awesome. Yeah, because for a lot of people now, it's like, you see a lot more people taking pictures at shows, and they got digital cameras, and you see them snap a bunch of pictures, and they're looking and they're deleting and, looking at the little screen and being able to go back and digitally look at the pictures right then and there and delete the ones they don't want. Like back then it was a game. It was like a gamble. Like you were like, you said you got one shot, you know what I mean? And it's either good or it's not. And that's it. You got to move on to the next thing, and you don't know until you get home and develop it. The anticipation must have been kind of awesome, like.
Oh yeah. Plus there was a chance you make mistakes. That's also like, and every time the first time I made a mistake, I'd be like, well, why did that happen? Then I'd ask somebody who knew something, and they'd say, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, or you hit this button, you shouldn't have done that. So I was like, then you wouldn't make that mistake again. But like when you're like developing film, sometimes, depending on how they have these metal reels that you're supposed to actually take the film and you roll it in these reels, and it's supposed to be a certain amount of space in between each reel, and then you put the chemicals in, you put a little thing and whatever. But if you don't do it, and this is all done in the dark, you can't see anything. So sometimes the film would sit on top of the next piece of film, and that wouldn't get developed. So right there, you would lose an exposure or two. So that was a pain in the ass. Or if the water temperature was too hot or too cold during this one thing, and you rinsed it, it could change the film. It would like fuck up all the grain. There was all kinds of stuff. Yeah. It's just like, my exposures, my exposure's okay. Because if you don't get a good exposure, you go home and you develop, and the film is like clear. Like, what? I got nothing on this.
Yeah.
There was like in the middle of the show. Because the Misfits didn't play very long at that time. They played like an hour, maybe. Towards the end, they played like every song they knew, so they played like 2 hours. But you had to change film in the middle of the fucking show. Holy shit, I'm out of film. So then you throw one in your pocket, grab one out of there. Then you got to put it in, and if you don't put it in right, it could slip off the thing, and then you get to the end, and you actually didn't take any pictures because the film did. You know what I mean? I did that once. I did that once. Oh man, that was fucked up. I did that once.
Yeah.
It just slipped off, and I knew all the tricks, but you're so worried you're going to miss something, and all this shit's going on, and it's crazy. People are fucking flying by, and people are throwing bottles and all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
So it was a real thing. It was an event, and it's not like today where they hold it up and they get video and they watch the whole show, and then they watch. They go home and they watch it later instead of like enjoying it. But I never got to really see the shows anyway because I was always looking through the lens.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know, like, I had to relive the show through the photos because it's so much going on, and you never knew.
Yeah, because you were hyper focused and looking right through that lens. You weren't looking at the whole. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how you didn't know somebody was going to, knock you off the stage or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was in the pit a couple of times with the camera, but it wasn't. It was really hard to like carve out a spot, take a shot, and then get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Because I used to go to those clubs and get on the dance floor and do the same shit and stage dive and all when I wasn't taking pictures. Because I went to see all my favorite bands when they came into town. And all my favorite Boston bands when they came. I was big, me and my guys from Rosemary's Babies, we loved the Boston crowd.
Oh,
and we somebody just said, we were going through something and an FU song came up or a Jerry's Kids song came up or something. And that was the ones that I used to love, and Gangrene and, just And when you guys from Boston would come down, if one of you guys' bands was on the bill, then sometimes they do a road trip, and a bunch of guys would come down, and then you say, "Who the fuck are these guys?" And they all looked different, and they dressed differently. They had different ways of like dancing and different ways of stage diving and shit. So we started getting to, be friendly with them and sort of mixing a little bit of Boston with the Jersey and the New York shit, which the New York people couldn't stand. They already hated us because we were from Jersey, but they were like, no, they hated Boston even more. But the music was so awesome, and I still listen to. I love the FU's My America album. It's so good.
Yeah, so good.
And I had to play something for the old lady. I said, you might actually like this because she's like 20 years younger than me, and the kind of music she listens to is very close to a lot of stuff that I liked when I was her age and younger. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, you should listen to this. When I was like 20, 22, this is what I was listening to. She's like, yeah, this is pretty cool. And it was like hardcore, but like, I don't know, all hardcore bands really wanted to play metal because, or something. And a lot of bands started doing power chords and doing shit, and it really wasn't metal. But people, when you're a skinhead, you're going like, that's not fucking hardcore, that's not punk, whatever. But everybody evolved into something else. But man, I still love it. I love some of that shit. It still makes me crazy.
The rock shit hit hard in Boston. If you like listen, obviously like the later SSD records or the later the Straw Dogs or the
Straw Dogs.
The later DYS records got a little more rock for sure. I remember when SSD put out that one album that everybody thought was like metal, and it was just because it was real slow and it had lots of big power chords and shit in it. It was like a blue and gray cover. I remember that was the first one that everybody hated. Get It Away? Was it Get It Away? Or was it after Get It Away?
It might have been. Yeah. He goes, it sounds like it because we would have said, hey, get it away. And like would have tossed it aside or whatever.
Yeah.
It was the one. I think it was the one that had How Much Art on it.
Yeah,
was that on that?
That was Get It Away. Yeah, Pushead drew that.
Oh my God! Yeah, we were upset about that. Yeah, because
so you guys must have went real crazy when How We Rock came out.
Oh no, we were done by that time. No, we had moved on to other shit. But there was a beautiful like 3 or 4 year period that was just amazing. With the bands and the shows and got to see, because I was in New York like every weekend for shows, and everybody came in. You can see Bad Brains and Minor Threat on the same bill with the Beastie Boys, and all the New York bands were cool. Heart Attack was one of my favorite bands that as Jesse turned into Degeneration years later. Yep. He was like 15, 16. His band was called Heart Attack. I love them. Yep. There was a band called Kraut that was pretty good. It was just then there was Murphy's Law and Agnostic Front and all those guys. All doing like playing at A7 and like CBs and stuff. Yeah, hell yeah. And there was just so much great shit. I mean, I loved seeing the Bad Brains. It was a fucking talk about a workout. You were lucky to get out alive sometimes. It was amazing.
I get so mad, man, because I skated in when I was a kid about 85, so I just missed that whole first wave there. You know what I mean? Like
the hardcore thing was everybody was starting to turn into the Straw Dogs and all that shit. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I saw like FU's last show was FU's, but it was basically a Straw Dog show. But I did see Jerry's Kids open up for Suicidal on like 85, and Jerry's Kids was still fucking. They never slowed down. They kept it fucking hard, the whole time.
Yeah, I see. I didn't. Somebody had just posted something on like Facebook, and it was a Jerry's Kids record that I didn't know about. And I have like 2 copies of the "Is This My World" record. That's and one's still in shrink wrap, I bet.
Damn,
and
awesome.
I saw them when Chris from Gangrene was playing guitar. I don't know if he was sort of in and out of the band, but he was playing with them at that time. When they came to New York, and that's the only time I got to see him. But when the compilation record from '83, This Is Boston, Not L.A. came out.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was like me and Glenn were listening to that all summer because those like 6 or 7 or 8 Gangrene songs. Just I fucking flipped. I love that shit.
Yeah, me too. Man.
And that was all. That's all I cared about for that whole record. That we listened to a concert. That's why I always
Killer
thought.
Comedy and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I always. Oh yeah, no, please.
Yeah.
I always thought that maybe that's why Earth AD was so fast, because that's the same summer that all those cool Gangrene songs were on that compilation, and we listened to it a lot.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Because Earth AD was such an anomaly, dude. I love that record, you know what I mean? But it was such an anomaly from the rest of their catalog. Yeah,
exactly. You got to approach it as a different animal altogether.
Absolutely.
But but the funny thing was that Jerry and Doyle, what Glenn told me was they were getting into like Iron Maiden and stuff.
Yeah.
And Iron Maiden, for like metal, they played pretty fast, I mean, it doesn't really, it doesn't feel as fast as say like Metallica or Slayer or something, but they played pretty fast. So I think it was a combination of both things that made that record so fast.
Yeah.
And then of course Robo, he played like the same beat through like the entire album.
Yeah. The Robo beat. Yeah.
And it's just fast. And it's just the same beat at the same time and all. And that was the funny thing when the whole time they toured with him, that all the shows, they weren't concerts, but all the shows were like I said, they would run out of stuff. They'd say, okay, what do you want to hear? And they would just play everything they had, but they played them all the same tempo.
Yeah.
So even like Teenagers from Mars and some of the real old stuff, you couldn't tell what the hell it was, because Robert was just driving the bus, playing the fucking beat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was just one big wall of noise. It was unbelievable.
I remember seeing
everybody loved it.
Yeah, I remember seeing a video from when they played Boston in like '83. It was like at the end.
Yeah, there was a channel video. I was supposed to be there that weekend because they were going to film the show, and then they were going to do. They were supposed to do like regular videos of like skulls and maybe something else, and they did Brain Eaters.
Yeah, I saw that video when I was a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the channel, and I couldn't go. It was a death in the family, so they went and they came back. But I've got original, like second or third generation copy of the show on VHS somewhere. Yeah, and I also took the audio off of it, so I got a cassette of that whole thing. But I love the channel, man. We played there with Danzig. I think it was still open. It was probably on our first tour, and the Boston loved the Misfits. So when Samhain or Danzig would go, it's just like Boston. It's like our second, second favorite place.
Yeah,
and I got to see Roy Orbison at the channel like 2 months before he died.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's crazy.
So that was great. So I didn't even know when it closed, but that was '88.
Yeah.
So I can't remember when it closed, but I love going to Boston. It's great. And plus, my family had a house on the Cape.
Okay.
From like 100 years ago. It was sorted out like a fishing cabin. So I was up at the Cape maybe a week every year or whatever, that kind of shit. So we had kind of a connection. So I like Boston a lot,
Yeah. So too bad we didn't do this last week, man, because my motorcycle shop, we had our 21st anniversary party this weekend, and Murphy's Law played, but Chris from Gangrene, Chris Doherty was there. I would have gave him a shout out for you. You know what I mean? Because I hadn't seen Chris in maybe like, he played our 10th anniversary party as Gangrene, that 11 years ago. But I hadn't seen Chris in a long time, and he had a stroke. But he's doing way better. They said he'd never walk again. He's walking around, with a little bit of assistance and stuff. He's not in a chair or anything. So
I never. When I got into doing Samhain, that like took over my whole world.
Yeah,
and so I wasn't focused on the hardcore stuff. So I kind of lost touch with everybody.
Yeah,
and only when we were back in town. I mean, even with Danzig, we'd still run into Springer when we played Boston,
Yeah, Springer's fucking bananas, dude. He's still around.
Right, I know. I know. Or, who was the bass player? Was Jamie? Bass player?
Yeah, Jamie, yep.
Yeah. I still hear from him every once in a while.
Yeah.
I didn't know, because I had heard all kinds of things about Gangrene and maybe just Chris being a little bit too heavy into something or another, and
he's
being a little detrimental to like the band and his like health in general and stuff. And so I never really knew. So now
wild.
you tell me, it's all news to me.
Yeah, he's wild, man. He's a wild man.
But I figured, it had to be something,
Yeah.
Everybody's got their monkey, so.
Best quote, man, because he's had a stroke, so half of his face is kind of not working correctly, and he's sitting at the thing, and I'm like, Chris, man, you need anything? He goes, first thing he goes, shot of Jaeger. And I'm like, all right, dude.
Yeah, right.
It's still rolling, all right.
yeah, but go get me a beer.
Yeah, shot of Jaeger. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah, that'll do.
Whatever you need, bud. So yeah, man. So Misfits was winding down, and you and Glenn were both talking about how you guys were the more serious. Not talking about how you were the serious guys, but you're talking about like you wanted to get your bands keep going, but other guys weren't taking it as serious. So he asked you to come play in Samhain. And didn't you originally you played drums at first, right?
Well, that was what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I practiced with the Misfits like twice, and it was like I was going to be in the band. I was supposed to do a gig. I practiced with them on a Friday, and they needed somebody because Dewey had quit or Glenn had fired him. I can't remember. I kicked them out of the band. And so I was going to be in the band, and I was supposed to do a show, but over the weekend I decided I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was playing drums in the first couple of rehearsals for Samhain because I hadn't heard the songs, and so I had a guitar and my drums were set up, and we had amps and stuff for Rosemary's Baby. So Glenn was just like showing me the songs and telling me what kind of like how he wanted to be or whatever, and they were all in like weird timing. It wasn't like because you got your own internal timing. And I know for a fact, people from New York and people from New Jersey have a slightly different timing. So it's kind of like you can either play with them or they can play with you or you can't. And a lot of the songs were like, it just didn't feel normal and I couldn't do it. Yeah. And I was just like, so after like a couple rehearsals, I said,
and for all intents and purposes, Samhain was definitely its own entity. It wasn't. It didn't really sound like anything
all
else.
The stuff was. I don't know. I think Glenn wanted it to be weird in the beginning, and it just wound up being like whatever he was going through. But I wasn't a good enough drummer. All I wanted to do was play as fast as I could and play as fast as Gangrene or the FUs or whatever. So that's all I did, and I got really fast. But I couldn't do anything else.
Okay,
So I asked Craig from Rosemary's Babies to come down and play guitar. I said, "Glenn, I'll show you, the chords or whatever, and just if you could just help us flesh the songs out." So he did that, and I'm still not getting it. And Glenn and I just had a conversation, or I talked to him on the phone. I can't remember. It's kind of like we just came to the mutual agreement that it wasn't happening. It was like, so I was just like, "Yeah, I'm not good. I'm not good enough. I can't do this." He's like, he wanted me in the band, so he's just like, "Well, go get a bass. Why don't you just play bass?" Yeah. He said, because he goes, with the way you are, because I was pretty crazy back then. He said, you should be out front anyway, because you got that kind of personality. And I'm like, okay, fine. And he says, we'll get that guy Steve to play drums. He's got a kit in his bedroom, or whatever. I'm like, okay, fine. So I ran down to the fucking store and bought a bass, and that was the end of it. I went, okay. Because I had a good job at the time. So bass was like, I don't know, $300, $400, $500. I don't know what it was. I just went down and fucking picked one out and bought it cash. And there you go. And that was it.
How old are you at this point? Like, how old are you? Like around
like 19, 20.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was first tour. 84 was like our first record. I was born in 61. Yeah, I would have been like 19 or 20 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was still nuts.
Yeah. And so, getting on the road, you said you the first record, you did the first tour, and on the first record, there's only three of you. Is it because you didn't have a fourth guy yet when you took that picture?
Yeah, that's all it was.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like Glenn had he had like a little plan, like he didn't always tell us, but he had like a timeline. So he's like, okay, record the record, get it out, and then book the tour for a month afterwards. So he had this all according to plan,
Yeah.
So he wanted the record out at a certain time, and we didn't have a guitar player. So he played some guitar, and then he had Lyle come in from Minor Threat, and Lyle played some guitar and stuff, whatever. So we had the three of us. We needed a cover, and there was three guys in the band, so we took a picture, and that was it.
Where was that taken?
And that was in Glenn's basement.
Okay. I always heard that. I wanted to confirm it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's probably the same. I don't know how it is with your like families in Boston, extended families and stuff, but the Italians all have a basement apartment in their under the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when the first one gets married, they live in the basement for the first year while they get money until they can get their own house.
Yeah, yeah.
So Glenn just happened to never leave.
Yeah.
So he had like a kitchen, a refrigerator, and it was right next to the furnace.
Yeah.
And and then he had a little twin bed and a TV and all his toys and stuff, and that was it, we took it in the kitchen somewhere.
Nice. That's a pretty iconic record cover. That's why, you know what I mean?
I can't get away from this shit. And when the pictures pop up and stuff, I start remembering things. And then I hear somebody tell, how we took it or who took the picture. I'm like, hey, I took that picture. I set up the whole shot. I did everything. I was the photographer. Glenn had taken some classes, but he looked through the lens and he's just like, yeah, that looks cool. But yeah, I pressed the button. I did all. I was like, there was nobody else there, And
that was the cool thing, man, because like Misfit stuff and Samhain stuff, like it was larger than life. Like as a kid, I thought you guys were fucking huge. Like I didn't realize you guys were playing, and it was like small tours and shit. Like to me, the Misfits in my head got so blown up, even as like a young punk rock kid. And then I didn't get to see Samhain. I don't know why, but
we didn't play that much.
Yeah,
we did like a couple. We did like say like one, because you couldn't afford to go from New Jersey to Los Angeles unless you had steady gigs booked where you could make it to the next town.
Yeah.
You could only go as far as you could go, or like you didn't have a dependable vehicle. You break down, you miss some gigs, whatever. So we would do same thing the Misfits did. You go up the East Coast, go up to Boston, then go down, play Philly or Baltimore. Then you go, okay, let's go to Pittsburgh, and then we'll keep driving. We'll go to Chicago, then we'll go to Detroit, and then we'll turn around and go back, and maybe we'll play this place or that place. So if you went out to California, that was like a big thing. You really had to book a whole tour all the way across. It's not like you get in a bus. And it's already booked for you.
Yeah.
You had to really sweat. And sometimes you were booking shows while you were on the fucking road.
Trying to fill in the holes and the gaps and stuff.
Yeah, I need a number in Kansas City.
Yeah,
do you know anybody? He's like, yeah, call my buddy. He'll rent out the VFW for you.
Yeah,
that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was that way. And we had like either one guy that would help drive and help load the stuff, or nobody. We usually had like one guy, and that was it. So you had to drive, get into town, load your gear, do sound check, put on your makeup, do the show, load up, and drive and go home. Go to the next gig. Yeah. So it was a lot harder than it was like say Danzig, where it was just like I just had to show up. It was great.
Yeah, it was still way more DIY stuff. Yeah, but that's what I mean. It was like such a testament to the work ethic of all you guys, because it looked like a way bigger operation. It looked like major to us, when we were kids. Like holy shit.
Well, everybody thinks that their favorite band is the biggest band on the world anyway.
Yeah.
It was always like that, but people didn't realize it was like. Yeah, the reason bands broke up is because they couldn't make any money, or there wasn't a big enough audience. But you guys all go. And I did it too. It's just like, well, why did they break up? You just don't realize. Well, the band wasn't making any money, and they couldn't keep doing it. Like, but they're the biggest. I think they're the biggest band in the world. Yeah, well, if you buy 1 million records, then they can stay on tour.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you go out and buy 1 million records, and then we'll talk. Okay.
Yeah. There wasn't any arena tours at that point for the Misfits, right?
Oh no, man! Yeah. We and Samhain played the same places that the Misfits played. because it was, soon after, and a lot of the places would come and go. Like they could be up for like 6 months or a year, but a lot of the gigs were VFWs and stuff like that, rented places that you could rent for a couple $100, and you get a sound PA, sound guy with a PA for like $250, and you charge $5 at the door, and hopefully you don't lose any money, and then you give the band as much as you can.
And hopefully you sell enough merch to help supplement that, whatever you didn't make at the show.
Oh yeah, we had T-shirts, and Glenn learned that from the Misfits. You bring screens. We used to have shirts, and then when we ran out, we'd buy shirts while we were on the road. Just look up in the phone book for a distributor, and then print some more shirts. And a lot of times the shirts saved your ass, because they were probably $10 a piece, but you sold 10 shirts. That's an extra $100.
Absolutely.
And that goes, you need gas money, or all of a sudden alternator goes on the van.
Yep.
Yeah. That T-shirt money saved our ass more than once.
Absolutely. So what was it like? I mean, I know you hadn't been in the Misfits, but you'd gone around to a bunch of shows with them. Like the first Samhain tours, what was that like? Did you meet a lot of resistance from like the Misfits crowd? Were they like, what the fuck is this? Like, especially like maybe on the first tour where people weren't as familiar, because, by the second or third record, everyone kind of understood like the direction of Samhain, but like,
the first show was like, okay, people came out because they wanted to see what's Glenn's new band going to be like.
Yeah.
And so, of course, a lot of people were like, we were not playing as fast as the Misfits were, especially at the end there, where they were pretty much like a hardcore band,
Yeah.
So we were playing slower, kind of gothy, doomy kind of crap, and they'd be like, play faster, and yelling out for songs and stuff. And when we went on the first tour, the problem was the record wasn't out yet. Like,
okay. You beat the record.
What happened was the record was supposed to come out a month before, and because he had already booked the shows, and now we're stuck. And I don't know what exactly happened and why it didn't come out according to plan, but we went out and nobody knew who we were and hadn't heard the record and didn't know we were coming. So we played to like 20 people, 30 people. We did a whole lot of like, empty gigs. And then the next time, when the record comes out, and it's out for like 6 months or a year. Then the next time we come around, that's when people started to show up. But still, it took like 3 good years before we were playing, decent places. We were just playing clubs, or rent halls. And the same, now it is the same. 100 kids in the scene are going to go see every band that comes into town anyway.
Yep.
So that's it. Every time you go, there's that same 100 kids, or same 200 or 50 kids or whatever. So that was your crowd, and you just go to the next one and be like, oh yeah, we just had, Black Flag here, whatever.
Yeah. Cool. Any standout memories from those Samhain days, or like touring and whatnot? Any standout shows or memories?
Yeah, well, it's hard to remember everything now, but
course, yeah.
I was still pretty much straight edge back then. I had all this angry energy, so I didn't do anything to inhibit it. But I'm trying to remember. Yeah, well, basically, the only thing I can remember the most is like we had to sleep on people's floors in your wet clothes, and remember trying to have somewhere to put on your other pants, or you get ready for the show, but do your makeup or whatever, and there'd be like roaches everywhere in people's houses, and fleas from cats and things like that. But then there was also like Tim from the Big Boys, where the Misfits had stayed at the Big Boys, Tim's house, when they played Austin. So when we came to town, we stayed there, and that was great for like a couple of days, and everybody came up, had a great show. We actually opened up for the Big Boys because it was their hometown,
Sure.
So that's the only time Samhain opened up for anybody. Well, it was the Big Boys, It's just like, if this is Austin, we should be opening for them, And the Blood show in Chicago, that was like in '86. that was great because we played the Metro there like a year before, and I think we played the Smart Bar or something underneath. It was like where you played first when you were just a local band, and then if you played good enough, or you could sell tickets, you could play the main room, which is upstairs.
Yeah.
So I remember Hanoi Rocks was playing upstairs the same night we were playing downstairs, and nobody was at their show, and they were even giving people like you could get in free if you bring your Samhain ticket into the show, and still nobody was up.
They were trying to scab you guys. Yeah, damn.
Yeah, yeah. So nobody. Everybody was at our gig, and nobody was at their gig, and I thought that was funny. But yeah, we did then like the next time through town, we did the blood show, which was like we covered ourselves in blood before we stepped on stage, so the whole show we had blood on us the whole time. And that was great, but it was also a real pain in the ass, you know. Yeah,
did it fuck up any of the gear?
No, we didn't get it on it got on the guitars and stuff, but not on the rest of the shit. Yeah. And plus that stuff with the lights and shit, it starts to dry, so it doesn't really splash around. Yeah. So it's like basically you're like a giant candy apple right at the end of the show. Yeah. And the coolest thing is I didn't have the camera because. That's the reason I don't have any Samhain photos from on the road is because it was my dad's camera and it cost like $300 and I couldn't take it with me. So I didn't have my own camera, but there was a big 6-foot pool of like blood in the dressing room. Would have made a great photo that we could have done or just even a photo of that. And I think the Minutemen were on the bill before us. And they were they just walked by the dressing room and were like, what the fuck's going on here? You know? But yeah, and we had like, oh man, we broke down in like El Paso, and for one thing, there's nothing in El Paso. Yeah. And we didn't have a gig, but we lost a big Dallas gig and maybe an Atlanta gig because like we got stuck and we had to wait for the part to show up and we had no money, we had no food, you know. Yeah. It's like the first time we went out to LA, we only had one gig and it was in the middle of the week. So we had to wait and we were like eating peanut butter and crackers and like candy bars and stuff. And we had no money, you know, and then we got paid for that gig and it was fine. Now we could go wherever we were going to go. Yeah. But
there must be a fondness to those memories though, where it was like a struggle, you know, like.
Oh yeah, you got it. That's the way you earn you pay your dues. You know But by the time me, Chuck, and John got to because Chuck started touring in a van when he was like 12. Yeah. So by the time and Glenn had toured more than me, but it wasn't as much as say like Black Flag toured where they played like everywhere. But by the time we got to a bus, first time I stepped on a bus, it was our bus. I sat down and I went, yeah. I think I get used to this. Sure. You know, it's just like, I remember the feeling like it was yesterday going like, yeah, I ain't never getting off this thing, you know, and that was it. So it was I think if you don't go through all that, it's just like starting at a company and you start in the mailroom. And by the time you're done, you're like, vice president or whatever. You got to learn the ropes and learn how to be on the road and just, some people like tour managers and stuff, when we got them for Danzig, they would tell us things like, you guys have never done like real tours. This is what you got to do, and give you little pointers and stuff. It was like a whole different world. Yeah. But yeah, you really got to go through all that because that's how you learn, and by the time you get to a certain level, you become a professional, I mean, and that was it, that this is your job. And if you've learned and paid attention and you apply yourself, you're really good at it. So, that stuff's all really necessary. Yeah. Plus everybody talks about, oh yeah, this is great. I'm like, yeah, it's great. Making no money and being stuck in the middle of Wyoming with no gig. Yeah. And waiting whatever.
On a part. Yeah. No income and waiting on a part so that you can go someplace to make money.
Yeah. Yeah, and still, when you come home, you still have to have a regular job, and all that stuff. And if you're lucky, most of us would have to quit our job if we had to go on the road, But I was lucky at that point. I was working in a hardware store, and the guy was really super cool boss. I would tell him, hey, I got to go record. We're working on this new album and I got to go record. So I can't come in, or I got to leave after lunch. And for like 3 hours, I'd go to the studio or whatever. And he'd be like, okay, go ahead. So then I would say, listen, I got to go on the road for like, it's only a month, I got to go. And if you want to fire me, I understand. But, I'd rather, just come back, he's like, okay. He'd be like, your job will be here when you, so I was lucky, but mostly everybody else either couldn't have a job or would have to quit their job just to go on the road for even, any time at all,
Yeah. No,
I never had a job, so he didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah. So, but talking about like studio and stuff, like what was the writing process for Samhain? Was it like Glenn driving it, or were you guys all kind of writing together, or how did that work?
Well, like I said, Glenn's already Glenn from the Misfits, and like, see, we thought the Misfits were the greatest, and then Glenn was the bomb, but we also knew that it was, it wasn't a big thing, but we didn't care because they were so cool, And so Glenn had written like all the songs to the Misfits, and I just having known him for so long and spent all this time with him, he had this horrible Silvertone electric guitar, but all the guts were out of it. So it was basically an acoustic guitar with like 5 strings on it.
Yeah.
And he sat on the bed and he wrote like all the Misfits songs like that. And he would just come up with songs or whatever, and then he would go down to rehearsal and say, I got a new song. And then you go, okay. He goes, it's A, G, A, E, A, G. Do that 4 times. Okay. Then it goes to this, and that's it. Right. So that was it. And then Jerry and Doyle were great for practicing. They practiced like maniacs, got everything down perfect, and then they go record it. Yeah. So when we got to Samhain, first of all, Glenn's not like 10 years older than me. He's already done all this shit.
Yeah.
He writes songs. He's a great singer. I was pretty much like, dude, what do you need me to do? And Steve was just Steve and Pete were afraid of Glenn anyway. So, and they were afraid of me too, but, they basically did not say anything, and just Glenn would say, yeah, play. I need this kind of chord or whatever. And then Pete would go like this, and he goes, yeah, that's good. So like, they never like said, oh, we should do this, but yeah, Pete would throw in a suggestion. But for the most part, Glenn would say, okay, I got a new song, and this is how it goes. Gotcha, yeah. And then we would just practice it until we got it right, and then he'd write the words, and usually words were what I recall. He didn't write a lot of words because he used to carry them around with him in this little plastic thing. It was really weird. And he wrote words. We wouldn't hear the words till we had laid all the tracks down. And then I remember being in the studio with Steve, and studio was so small. We were sitting next to the dryer while Glenn was doing the vocals.
Yeah.
And so me and Steve were leaning against the dryer or the washing machine, and Glenn's doing a vocal. First time we ever heard him sing Samhain, and we looked at each other and went, "Oh man," because it was like the song was already cool, and now it's awesome.
Yeah, it got tied together. It became a song once the vocals.
It became, it was like, and we didn't realize it was that cool. So we were like, I can't believe we're in this guy's band.
Yeah,
because it was that cool moment, and that was pretty much it. And I just wanted to be in this band because I wanted to be in the Misfits too,
Sure. Yeah.
So I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I really liked it. I was really into the same kind of shit. I liked all the imagery. I liked horror movies. I liked comics. I liked fucking, toys and cartoons and shit.
Yeah.
All the stuff Glenn and Doyle liked,
Sure.
I was like, yeah, that's why we were friends, because we like all this same cool shit,
How'd you get the nickname Eerie? Where did that come from?
Oh, it was just a punk rock name, like, come on, everybody had to have a punk rock name.
Sure, yeah.
Like, hey, Jerry Only, Johnny Rotten, Sid Vicious.
Yeah.
So I was like, I was reading the, Famous Monsters and Fangoria, and then there was a magazine called Eerie. Yeah. And there was a magazine called Creepy.
That. Yeah,
I was like, Eerie, that's close enough to my name. I'm like, that's going to be my name that I'm going to put on the record when I'm going to do Rosemary's Baby. Yeah. And then I think one of my relatives used to call me Von Eric or something, and I just said, "Oh, Eerie Von." That's it.
Yeah,
Von Eerie Von. I'm like, that's going to be my punk rock name, and so everybody just started calling me Eerie anyway. Yeah. And I'd put it on. I make T-shirts with Eerie on them and stuff, and I just wear them, and that's it. People just call me that all the time,
Hell yeah.
So that was it. It was just I came up with. You had to have something,
Sure.
Had a punk rock name. Plus, you wanted to keep your family out of it, so you didn't want to use your real name. Because in case something happened, you didn't want people showing up on your doorstep looking for you.
Yeah.
And bothering my mother.
Yeah.
So that was it.
So when did Rick Rubin come into the picture, and how did the transition from Samhain to Danzig come about?
I can't remember exactly. Like, I've heard recent stuff about how Rick wound up going to it was a showcase show called the New Music Seminar.
Oh, like CMJ sort of like, or CMJ or something like that?
It's sort of like South by Southwest, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay, yep.
Yeah, well, CMJ, that kind of thing. But it was called New Music Seminar back then. Yep. And basically it was like bands that were like on the cusp or had potential to go to the next level. It was like, in New York, it was like, we'll invite these bands and you'll play for some record labels and stuff, or some producers, whatever it was. It was a regular show, but these people would be in attendance, know.
So it was a kind of a showcase kind of.
Yeah, that's what we used to call it, a showcase.
Yeah.
So Glenn, I remember Glenn called me and asked him. He said, "We got a chance to do this thing," and he was explaining it to me, and I said, "So what good is this going to do us? I mean, like, for what?" So it was like pros and cons. All right, so why should we do this? He says, "Well, it's going to be this, that, and the other thing." You think it'll do us any good? Couldn't hurt. I'm like, let's do it then.
Yeah.
So we did one, and then I think we did another one with different bands, because I remember like Celtic Frost was on a bill, and like Sisters of Mercy was on one, and
cool.
there was some bands that were gonna go to the next level or whatever, start selling records. So we did this. I think Rubin showed up on the second one, and that would have been like '86. London was in the band, replaced Steve, and it might have been George Jakulius who told Rick he should go down, or Heavy Metal Scott, one of those guys. And he just happened to be in there, and he just loved Glenn. Thought he just fell in love with Glenn right there. Yeah. And he's just like, it's incredible. That's what he said, because Glenn was all that, just being like, not as crazy as he wound up being or as he is now. He just goes nuts on stage, but he was just had a big, powerful presence, and he had that big voice and stuff. And then, it was just it was like a happening. Every show, it was Misfits and Samhain. Every show was like an event.
Yeah.
It was not just a show. It was like, we're coming, and you're going to know, you're going to know you've been in, you've seen something, or you've been in a fight, or that kind of deal, So he was impressed by the whole vibe. He wanted to sign Glenn, had no use for the band. I don't think he didn't like the Devil Locks. He didn't like we did a Blood encore. We did 2 songs on that gig with the Blood.
Yeah. Just
for the hell of it. And I started off the show in a tuxedo, so I was like, I ain't getting no blood on my tux, so I had to take the tuxedo off. And so I don't think he cared for the whole horror thing.
Yeah.
But he knew he could see something in Glenn, and he wanted to just take him and build a band around him, So, of course, Glenn's not saying any of this, or, maybe Rick hasn't put that bug in his ear, but that's what he did, though. He started taking Glenn out to dinner, and it's like they both like wrestling, so they go wrestling, and then they'd start talking, and Rick would start telling him like his vision for the band and what he wanted, and little by little, it was just like, oh, well, Glenn doesn't think the guitar player is really going to make that transition with us, so we need a new guitar player. Same thing with the drummer. Drummer's not moving forward with the rest of us. And, everybody always blames that stuff on Rick. It wasn't really Rick, It was, Rick had a lot to do with it, but you can't tell Glenn anything. You can't tell him what to do.
Yeah.
So you could maybe plant the seed or suggest something, but it has to be his idea. And, that was just the way it went. It wasn't like, I want to get rid of the band and I'll get you a whole new band.
Yeah.
Because when if I wasn't there with some of the conversations, of course, it was a master plan. He didn't want to tell me because I was like second in command. So I didn't find out a lot of this stuff till later, but yeah, we wound up needing a guitar player who was maybe going to go to where we thought we were moving towards, and the way Glenn's songs were evolving, needed a different guitar player. So then we needed a different drummer. Then all of a sudden, well, we got these two amazing guys. It's a different band. We should call it something else.
Yeah.
Because it was Samhain. It was always going to be Samhain. But like I said, Rick wasn't crazy about the blood and the devil locks and stuff like that. So he sat me down one time and said, "Don't you think that this look is maybe going to alienate a lot of people?" And he says, "You've already got your built-in audience, but don't you want as many people as possible to hear your music?" And I said, "Yes, I do." He goes, "Well, it's just something to think about, because I know a lot of people would look at the way you look and the pictures and the album cover stuff and not buy it just because of that." And it made sense to me, if I was going to be a professional and I was going to do this for the rest of my life, or at least a good long period of time.
Yeah.
I had to make a living, but I wanted as many people to hear what we were doing and play the bigger places and just, I wanted to be playing in those big shows.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a rock star. So yeah, it made sense. And after a while, because I did all our auditions.
At this point now, probably it seems more attainable, because you got the guy that produces like Rain and Blood and fucking works with Johnny Cash and Roy Orbison and all this.
Yeah, I know, but he hadn't really done any of that shit yet.
That's
He had done like one Slayer record, and that's it. Yeah. And he had done everything else was
hip-hop.
rap.
Yeah, all hip-hop, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
but he was a guy. He was a player for sure, And
oh yeah, but we didn't really know. Like Glenn was just like, after he came in and met us and gave us the card and stuff, it was like, who the fuck was that?
Yeah, yeah.
It didn't mean nothing to him.
Sure.
But eventually, yeah, of course it did. But it was just one of those things where it was like, yeah, this made sense. And I went home, and after a while, because like I said, when we auditioned, like 30 guitar players, I came in full makeup and everything, devil lock, the whole deal.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was just letting them know, this is what you're going to deal with if we let you get
Yeah, yeah.
So
this
is all that stuff.
This is who you're going to be looking at on stage with you when you're doing this. Yeah.
Yeah, and this might be the direction we're still going in, because at the time I wasn't sure, because I was always the one that was trying to change the look and keep evolving that way. And Glenn and I liked wrestling too, so we also liked the whole show business part of wrestling.
Sure.
And it was just a thing. So we were getting more into that stuff, and Ruben liked that too. So there was a period where we were like, I know I could point out some of the photos of why I'm doing this face or looking like this. It's because it was Ravishing Rick Rude used to do that.
Yeah.
Or I used to wet my hair when it was longer, because Bret the Hitman Hart always came on with wet hair.
Yeah.
And I liked, so at the beginning it was a lot like that. But yeah, I cut my devil lock off, and that was it. I stopped shaving. My sideburns were already big. I already had big Elvis sideburns, so that I didn't have to work on those.
Yeah.
But that was it. But that was the main thing. If this band's gonna turn into something else and go to the next level and start selling real records and playing big places and going around the world, you have to evolve. And we got these two guys all of a sudden. Well, this guy's all about metal, and we got this punk rock guy who's like the punk rock Keith Moon. He's amazing.
Yeah.
This band is changing. So everything just went, and I was like, fuck, I don't have to shave. I don't have to put makeup on. I pretty much wore the same clothes and everything else.
Yeah,
that was it. I still had my boots and still have everything else. Yeah. I just stopped shaving, and that was it. But yeah, that was his biggest contribution. Musically, he liked to to get his hands on stuff like people love to do. Everybody thinks they can improve something. So he liked to arrange and say, well, how about if you played this part here? Or how about if you went to this chord here and stuff? So we would go, okay, well, we'll try that. We go, doesn't work. So we'd go back to the way it was.
Yeah.
And he liked to work on Glenn a lot about, it was mostly propaganda stuff. But what he saw the band as the bands that he loved. He wanted us to be one of those classic bands like The Doors, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, a band that lasts for 30 years and the people are still playing their records. And that's why the first album is a gatefold. It's a throwback to the 70s. You know what I mean? Our second album cover was a ripoff of the Doors' first album cover.
Yeah.
It was like, there was all these things that he had this vision for the band. And it was a very 70s kind of vibe. And like Black Sabbath was new to me because I was a punk rock guy.
Yeah.
But I was like, I really like this. And it was real. Everything was like evil. They had cool imagery and stuff. And I was like, I want to do that. So we started evolving into sort of a Black Sabbath-y kind of band.
Sure.
But we're still punk rock in our heads, except John.
Yeah.
But he wanted us to be that kind of band. And actually what it turns out is, Glenn's still on the road, still playing all those songs.
Yeah.
So this stuff has actually lasted like 30 years.
I was going to say it did work, you know what I mean? Because and those are the, not for nothing. And I'm not, the first couple of records are the records everyone remembers the most, you know what I mean?
Well, those are the ones when it was, it was a band, it was like a real band, and we were working towards like a common goal.
Yeah. And
everybody was like, everybody was good. Like all you had to do, Glenn would, by the time it got to be like the second album, most of the first album, he had almost all the songs written, but I wouldn't say all, about half of them. Because a lot of them didn't have lyrics and stuff, and a lot of them got worked out between us and Rick, right? But by the second album, it was more like he would come down and he would hum something to John. He didn't like pick up the guitar and say, here's how it goes.
Yeah.
He would say, I got a riff that and it goes like this. And John would go like this. He goes, not quite. And he'd go like this. And he'd play them like 5 different versions. Yeah. And he'd just pick, he goes, oh, that one. And then that's the way I still write songs. Is like, okay, now let's do that. We're going to do that 8 times. And then we're going to go into the verse and we'll just stay on the A for like 4th, and we'll do that. And then we'll go back to the riff. And that's just the way the songs are all written. And we just go, Chuck would go, what kind of beat do you want? Yeah. And then we just go, after the first album, we could just say, we need a She Rides beat, Chuck. And then he would just play that beat. Yeah. Or we need a John Bonham beat in this one. Yeah. And he just play anything you wanted. Yeah. And it was always great. He was like Ringo. Ringo never made a mistake in the Beatles. They never told him what to do either. Yeah. So it was like that with Chuck. So John and Glenn would sit there and work out like a rough arrangement, and me and Chuck would go play pool or go smoke a cigarette, and I'd come in and I go, what key is this in? And they'd say, oh, it's in A, and I'd be like, okay, and then we'd just start playing, and the song would just evolve and evolve until it would be the song. And then Rick would come in and go, what if you play this part? He was like, we already tried that. Yeah, because by now we knew what he wanted. And Glenn would say, Rick's going to want us to try it this way. So let's try it ahead of time. And we would. And then we go, doesn't work. So when he would come in, we'd say, we already tried that. It doesn't work. So, but so it wasn't like he didn't do as much. I think Lucifuge was really the record where I think the band sounded like the way we actually sounded, because the first album, we didn't sound like that. Yeah. We sounded more like Lucifuge, and it was so dry, and he wasn't as heavy-handed, really, but the production was better and stuff. But by the time it got to be like the third record, he wasn't really even around. Yeah. He was so busy working with Tom Petty and the Chili Peppers and everybody. I mean, I didn't even realize some of the bands he'd actually done, since then. I was like, Dixie Chicks? I don't remember him doing a Dixie Chicks album. Stuff like that, but he was very busy. So he we'd have to play. We could play him a play. Like we just did a take. Hold the phone up to the playback speaker and say, "This is where we're at." And he go, "Okay, call me in an hour."
Yeah.
And then we'd keep working, and then we call him in an hour. And he might come by to listen to some stuff, or whatever. But mainly it was the band and Glenn that was like, we were doing the record on our own for the third one, So,
yeah. Now, with Glenn being kind of headstrong for a vision of like what he has, and then Rick being a producer and having his own vision, did it ever get like real tense or ugly between them two? Like especially like at first when you guys are first learning how to work together.
The thing that I didn't like was while we were trying to do the basics for the first album, he kept calling Chuck into the control room between every take and telling him like specific drum things that he wanted. Like, so Chuck would be listening, and I'd see him listening. Yeah, okay, all right, I got it, all right. 5 of those, 2 of those over here. Okay, and then he would get into the behind the drums, and while we're doing the take, you could see him like thinking about what Rick wanted him to play,
sure.
And like counting and stuff. That never works.
Yeah.
Like
because
it
took him kind of out of the moment and more, and he's more in his head and out of the
and I
moment.
could see Rick was coming from like a real rhythm beat oriented kind of background with all the Run DMC stuff and the LL Cool J shit and all that. So the drum parts were really big part of those records. So I could see where he was heavy on the drum stuff. And then when we went to overdub, like he made me do Am I Demon like 20 times.
Yeah.
And because it's a really hard song to play, all downstrokes for like 4.5 minutes. And I'd be like, look, after like 8 times, I said, look, you're just, this isn't fun. This isn't good. There's no spontaneity left in this. If you just want it to be right, just have somebody else do it. That's what I used to tell him. I said, look, I play, when we're doing the basic tracks where the vibe comes out.
Yeah. And
like basically almost all our stuff was 1 take, 2 takes.
Yeah.
And because we were that good rehearsed, we knew the songs backwards. But yeah, there was some of that stuff in the beginning. And he used to try to get push Glenn a little bit more. And Glenn always been like, I've been singing for 30 years. Don't tell me how to sing.
Yeah.
And like producers are supposed to pull a performance out of you. Yeah. You're supposed to say, you're almost there. Just one more take. You just go for this note or, whatever. And Glenn was, by that time, he was just like, yeah, I've been doing this forever. I know what I can do, what I can't do. So they didn't really butt heads. It was just like Rick would suggest something. Glenn would say, I don't want to do that. And Rick would get this look on his face like, you really should think about it. He was just like, just think about it. He would say stuff like that. But he had this, most people would just do, like the Chili Peppers. I understand that Rick was very heavy-handed with them. Yeah. And I think like Anthony and those guys, they really needed somebody to do that. And I think that they went along with a lot of the stuff that he said. But just being, but they're all from California. They were probably a lot more relaxed. And,
easygoing guys. Yeah,
and we're from Jersey. We're like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, but, so there was never I never heard any big arguments or nothing. I never got pissed off. It was just basically, hey, we really didn't think Rick was that big a deal, so we were just going to do whatever we wanted. If he was going to put out the records, he was going to pay for everything. That was fine, but we're still going to do what we want.
Yeah.
And the only big thing that I think he did was that he totally changed Mother from the song that it started out as. And I'm surprised I don't have a tape, because I have rehearsal tapes from like day one. And Mother started off as a fast, like crazy punk rock kind of song, and it turned into an AC/DC song. And so the only thing that's left is the end, where we go crazy at the end.
Yeah. The speed up at the end. Yeah.
But I don't even remember it. See, I don't even remember how the song was before.
Yeah.
And he might have tweaked Twist the Cane a little bit more, whatever. But yeah, Mother was his big thing, and if it was up to him, he would have just had us play like that Cult record that he produced like 6 months or a year before us.
Yeah.
It's just basically AC/DC, same drum beat, just the same boring, bass stuff, and just, close chords, got out, got out. That's Mother turned into that. That's why it's one of my least favorite songs,
Yeah.
But,
and some of those were originally Samhain songs, right? Like Twist of Cain, right?
Yeah, a couple of like 3 or 4. So we were doing a cover of an Elvis song. We had Possession, we had Twist of Cain, and maybe one other one. I'm not sure. I'd have to think about it or look at some old tapes. But yeah, like we had at least maybe half a record ready, with demos, maybe 6 or 7 songs. So we were well on the way to doing like the next Samhain record.
Yeah.
When we started working with Rick, and this stuff just because he liked Led Zeppelin, he liked AC/DC, he liked Black Sabbath. He was, naturally went towards those kind of sounds and, things like that. And since Glenn was into the blues, and all those bands are blues-based bands anyway, it wasn't a big deal. He got me into the blues, which is awesome. Yeah. And, it's like, it's pretty much the blues and punk rock is my like whole existence,
Sure.
And, throw in Elvis and there you go. So yeah, Rick he loved that fucking Phil Rudd AC/DC drum beat, and the Sabbath stuff was always like, yeah, we got a fast song. Well, let's do the Sabbath version. We used to do that too. It was like, this is the way the song is. Now let's do the Sabbath version. We just play the same song, like Typo Negative, just do it really slow.
Yeah.
Like Typo would be like, yeah, let's just play the Beatles on the slow speed and then write a song like that.
Yeah, take a Beatles 45 and play it on 33.
Yeah, that's. I'm pretty sure that Pete said that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, because that was definitely. So yeah, Rick has influence and probably changing the name but since the band it was like a new band.
Sure,
it didn't bother me when Glenn. We were at some restaurant. We were somebody's record release party or doing something. I don't know. And him and Rick are sitting in a booth, and I get there, and he goes, thinking about changing the name of the band. I'm like, yeah, so what? He goes, Danzig. I said, oh, like Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
And like Chuck and John don't give a shit.
Yeah,
they're just like, Chuck's like, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, fine. Because I had told Glenn when we started Samhain, I said, why don't you just call it Glenn Danzig and like we'll be like the band and you'll be Glenn Danzig and we'll call it something else.
Yeah.
Like I actually thought like Glenn Danzig and the Archangels because we had that song Archangels.
Yeah.
I was like, and he was like, no, I want a band. I don't want to do that. So like when people call Danzig Glenn's solo project, that really pisses me off.
Sure, because it was a real band effort. Yeah,
it was a band, and I know because I started both of them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it's like, it's since the original band broke up, you can call it whatever you want, but he still calls it Danzig. But there's been 30 different people in the band, But so I don't think Ruben eventually had that much, influence on us. But we really wanted his, record company and his distribution because he had Warner Brothers distribution then. And then it went to Geffen, and we weren't happy about that. And Geffen never liked us, and so I really was hoping Rick was going to turn us into the next Metallica, which is what everybody said we were going to do. These guys are going to be the next Metallica. And I was just like, yeah, pretty much. That's the way we're headed. And even Metallica said that.
Yeah.
They're like, when you get to this level, this is what's going to happen. They would tell us shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we go like, you got to expect this to happen, and this shit's going to happen, and that's going to happen, whatever. And be like, okay, so when we get there, we'll know.
Yeah. What was it like going on that first, going out with those songs as Danzig from Samhain? Because I was there at the Providence, the Living Room show. I think it was like Christmas night or something. And
yeah, it was one of those weird. It was, that wasn't the one with the snow, was it?
I think it was, yeah. And
Because there was
I'm not gonna lie.
yeah, there was this. There was a show. There was nobody there because it was a blizzard or something, right? Was that the one?
I think there was a good crowd there. Maybe it wasn't that.
No, I must be thinking of another show, but yeah, I remember the living room. You can't forget a name like that.
Yeah, and it was the big bubble and yeah.
I don't remember anything else, but see, well back then, so we only had that album's worth of songs.
Yeah,
and so we played some Samhain songs. We played some Misfits songs.
Yeah, you played Halloween. I remember that.
Yeah, so
I was going to fight with Danzig because I took the mic out of his hand because I was so excited and was singing Halloween.
Yeah, that would have been a good move. Yeah.
But that was, because we didn't really know what to expect. And, at that point, I was like a 15 or 16-year-old kid, and I was just all rambunctious. He was a little punk rock kid, you know what I mean? I was still treating it like a punk rock show. We didn't know, you know what I mean? And we were a little surprised.
But we still treated the shows like a punk rock show.
Yeah,
I mean, even, we still had that attitude. And like when you see that live Mother footage and the barricades all busted and people are like setting stuff on fire. Yeah, that was like the biggest punk rock show I ever played, you know?
Yeah.
And so we were definitely still like that. But we knew people were going to want to hear some of the Samhain songs, and we knew people, of course, were going to like to hear Misfits songs because now it was even further and further away from them ever hearing the Misfits again.
Yeah.
So every once in a while, we'd play London Dungeon, we'd throw out, we'd play Die Die, something like that. And people always liked it. So, and as we got to the second record, we had more material. We started dropping that stuff. Course, and we'd still play a Misfit song every once in a while, but we didn't really play any Samhain songs after that.
Yeah.
But, and Chuck and John were just like, go through the motions, like, it was like, yeah, whatever, just to get, Chuck playing Mother of Mercy. It's just like, yeah, whatever, get to the real stuff.
Yeah. Now, what was it like? Like, how long was it before, like, things took off and it, like, advanced from, like, because, it wasn't too long until you guys really just shot up, like, and it was like, now it wasn't clubs anymore. You guys were playing theaters and stuff or in arenas and shit. Like, how long, like, what was that ride like?
Well, let's see. We did our first tour. We had played like 5 shows with Slayer, just like major cities. We did Chicago, Detroit, New York. So we're already, playing bigger places, but supporting somebody else. So we go with Metallica, but Metallica wasn't even big yet. Yeah. Like when we played with them over in Europe, they were playing clubs. Yeah. We played. We played one arena and it was empty. It was like, it was half full, not even. There was like 8,000 people there and it was like a 20,000 seater. But most of the places we played with them were not big. And when they got big is when they came over to America after that tour. That was their warm up,
Sure.
For their American tour. And then their, And Justice for All started to take off. But for us, we had to do our own tour. We did at least a year or a year and a half before the next record, and we were still playing, small places. There was nothing special. We wound up starting to play like those like airport kind of hangars where it's like 2,000 or 3,000 people in a big empty room.
Yeah.
We did shows like that. And that was starting to be cool, but we weren't quite up to the theaters yet. So we didn't start doing the theater stuff till probably at least Lucifuge, so sure. It's like 90, 91, 92, something like that. And then from there on, it was almost all theaters. And then occasional, outdoor shed show or this, that, and the other. But we never got to the point like that Halloween show. That was our biggest headline gig. It was 13,000 people. We never got to the arena thing with the original band. The whole, we after Chuck, and then me and John left, we hadn't made the big jump because Glenn didn't really want to make the big jump. He wanted to still have that indie credibility, and so he never really wanted to get bigger than just playing the theaters and stuff. So we didn't get to be the next Metallica. You know?
Sure, yeah. And you were on the first, what, like 4 records, right?
Yeah, plus the Thrall EP. There's like
yeah.
half live, half studio.
Yeah, yeah. And then you ended up leaving in what was like the mid '90s, right?
Like 95, me and
Yeah.
John left the same day or whatever.
What you know, if you don't mind talking, what happened there? What made you guys want to take off from that? Because you guys worked so hard, get this whole thing going, getting the steam going, and then you guys took off. Was it what happened there?
Well, when Chuck left the band, it was like that was the beginning. You know, we left like a year after that.
Yeah,
It was just like, Chuck was a lot of the soul of the band.
yeah,
And you're only as good as your drummer. And Chuck was the greatest drummer. Anywhere he went, he made your band 100% better as soon as he sat down. And I was just like, oh. Plus, me and Chuck were friends.
sure.
We used to have fun. He and I were the only ones who really drank and got into trouble and stuff.
Yeah.
Take acid once in a while, things like that.
Sure, yeah.
We were the only ones that did anything, that caused trouble.
Yeah.
And when he was gone, it was just me and John had stopped drinking like the first year of the band. He said, "I'm not going to drink again until I'm rich." Oh, he's still not drinking.
Yeah.
So he was never happy in the band, and the band had run its course. If Chuck hadn't quit, we probably would have stayed around for another couple of years, maybe.
Mm.
But Glenn also was, after the success of the Mother thing, go figure. You have like a hit record 5 years after it comes out,
Yeah.
So see, Glenn always did the same thing. He wanted to go back underground because now, he didn't want to get too big. He wanted to keep control of his whole deal, like his, I don't know exactly what you call it. He just wanted to be in control. So he could never get beyond his control. And he had told me, he said, well, if you try to make the big jump into the big leagues and you don't succeed, you can't ever go back because your old audience won't take you back and stuff like that. So I think he had a little fear of success, but he was fine. He didn't need to get any bigger. He didn't need to make any more money. He was fine right where he was at, but it just became less fun. Like he wasn't having fun on the road, and he would bring his little dark cloud wherever he went, and nobody was having fun.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to hang out with him. All he wanted to do is go to strip clubs and the comic shops and stuff. And not everybody wants to do that.
Yeah.
Plus, nobody had the money to go to strip clubs and things like that. So John wasn't hanging out with anybody. It just wasn't as much fun anymore. And I was like, I'm not, John's like, well, I'm quitting the band at the end of the last tour. I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to want to do this with. Yeah, I couldn't imagine doing it without John either.
Sure, yeah.
Because, I could have stayed with Glenn, and I knew where he was going to go, and I could have went with that, but my heart wasn't in it. And that's what I told them. I said, I'm just not giving it 100% anymore, and I feel like I'd be cheating the audience if I wasn't really into it. And it was kind of like, you know what, you should go. This will be a new start for you, and I'm going to do my thing. And that was basically it. It was just like the band kind of just ran its course,
Yeah.
And he went on to do all of, that crazy record he put out first, and then all the stuff he's been doing since. And I expected John to put out a bunch of records, and he put out one.
Yeah.
And Chuck went and played with Social Distortion, and then he kind of retired, and I just kept putting out. I put out a record every so often, and I'm working on number 6, and I put out a book, and whatever. So it was just time to go our separate ways.
Sure.
If we had gone to the point where I think we were playing arenas and things like that, the money would have been coming in and all. We probably would have done what most people would do, is like, stick it out for a couple more years so you can make some more money. I had told John, I said, if you're not happy, what you should do is this band could be really popular. You make a name for yourself, and then if you want, go off and do a solo thing, or you go play with Ozzy, or whatever. Yeah. And that's what I thought he was going to do, but he didn't. and and that was it. And I just went and did my own thing, and
Yeah.
that was it.
So you're cool. You guys are all still cool. It wasn't a blowout. It was just kind of the thing just ran its course.
Yeah, no, we all talk still. I don't hear from John that much. He's popped up lately. He shows up every couple of years. He pops up on like Facebook or something and does some things or does a show or whatever.
Yeah.
And I hear from Chuck through the grapevine mostly. Every once in a while, I get a secret message from Chuck. And I haven't talked to Glenn like since I left the band. Once you're out of the band, Glenn really doesn't want to have nothing to do with you anymore.
Yeah.
That's just the way it goes. I was like, I thought we could still be friends, but
especially since you guys were childhood friends,
Well, yeah, it was. Well, I was a child, but he was always. I always thought he was like 4 or 5 years older than me. I didn't realize he was like 9 years older because he was still into the same kind of stuff that I was into. You know how musicians are. We're all, arrested adolescents anyway.
Exactly. That's what keeps everyone young in the music industry.
We never grow up.
No.
We never grow up.
No, should you? Right?
So we had a lot of fun, and I looked at once I got in the band with him, I looked at it as it was me and him against the world, and anywhere he was going, I was going to be there, and I was going to make sure nothing happened to him, and we were going to do things on our terms and stuff, and we did that pretty much, and it just didn't get to the perfect ending, but I have no regrets. Yeah. People are really, I'm really happy that they still love those records, and we put on. I think I did one show in all those years that I didn't play as good as I could have. Other than that, we kicked ass like every night, and we made some great records, and I'm real happy about all that shit.
Oh, hell yeah, man. The classics, especially the ones you're on. Those are all the classic ones, And what any particular standout memories of those years? I know you said like every night you guys played your ass off, but was there any particular things from that time frame that like stick out for you, whether it was a show or just any particular memories or anything?
Yeah, I know that stuff is just so many things.
Yeah, of course,
a lot of it you can't remember unless you see pictures or somebody says, "Hey, remember that one?" or whatever.
Yeah.
No, there's all these little things, but there was also like you'd meet people or somebody come backstage and they're like everybody I knew was famous, so it was not. I was friends with Soundgarden, Metallica, Slayer, White Zombie, Typo Negative, Marilyn Manson, then Korn, so it was really no big deal. I mean, the time we got to see Roy Orbison, of course, that was, major. Meet people like that. But for the most part, it was basically, I wanted to stay on the road, and we just didn't play enough. But once the band was into like the second week of any tour, the band and the crew were just like a well-oiled machine. It was just great, and we were great every night. And it was it was like you could do no wrong. It's like the best feeling ever,
Yeah.
And everybody was so into it. And then we'd spend like 2 or 3 hours hanging out afterwards, signing autographs and taking pictures. That's the stuff I remember the most.
Sure.
Yeah. And I liked playing with Black Sabbath. We did 2 weeks. The only two bands. Danzig only opened up for Metallica, Slayer, and Black Sabbath.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. And we did 2 weeks of Black Sabbath, so I got to hang out and talk to Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, two of my favorite players.
Yeah.
And Dio was a really nice guy that, and I think even Glenn got a kick out of that. Me and John thought it was the best.
Sure.
But like Glenn and Chuck were like, nah, fuck Black Sabbath, those old farts or whatever. Yeah, but it was like a passing of the torch. That's what the whole point of was to have Black Sabbath was sort of endorsing us,
Yeah, absolutely.
So I thought it was important. It was only 2 weeks. Plus, it was we got to hear Black Sabbath every night if you wanted.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah.
And there was some of those festivals, like me, I met Robert Plant. He was really nice. Getting to hear Robert Plant singing some of those Zeppelin songs,
Sure.
and everybody's hanging out, and after you did your show, and you're sitting outside. And we used to make this little patio area. I used to set up tables and chairs for us to hang out by the bus, in those festival shows. And so you're listening, and everybody's like, "Oh," and he's like, "Oh, almost hit that note." Oh, it's like,
yeah.
And I don't know, Lenny Kravitz. He was a real cool guy. I remember running into people from the old days, like Brian Baker. I'd probably playing with Bad Religion by then.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden there he is. And it was always cool to do that. I hated traveling like to, all those Europe places were just I couldn't stand it. It's just like I'm like a 24-hour 7-Eleven kind of guy. I want a big gulp. I want to go to the store and get it.
Yeah.
I want I don't want to have to like you pull into some of these towns after dinner, the whole place is closed up.
Yeah.
You can't get food, you can't get booze, you can't do nothing. and the hotels, I like slept on a piece of wood that had like a piece of foam on top of it.
Yeah.
I was like, this is it.
They're not into air conditioning out there, or ice or anything. So.
Oh no ice, and everything was room temperature. The beer, there was a different beer in every town. That was okay, but sometimes you got beer from one town that you hated, and nobody would drink it. So that was the only beer that was left. That was awful. All that stuff was great the first time you do it or whatever. But eventually, it's like, you know what? I'm in a band. This is what I want to do. All this traveling stuff is everybody goes, "Oh, you get to see all this." No, you don't. It's like you and all you really care. All you care about is that show. You don't care about any of that other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're on tour, so it's not like you got like 4 days off, like in between stuff to do stuff. It's like you're getting on the bus, going to the show, getting on the bus, going to the next show. You know what I mean? And,
get on a plane, whatever. Yeah, we'd have like the 1 day off, and then your 1 day off might be spent traveling, and or you drive all this way and then you get into your hotel at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So then you sleep all day, and all you want to do is get something to eat, go do sound check, and then chill out until the show, and that kind of shit. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of running around, and you had to make your fun, and the fun was mostly hanging out with the crew and the rest of the band and stuff, and the opening bands. If they wanted to hang out, that was always fun. A lot of opening bands were like, they didn't know what to do about it, or they couldn't hang, that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So
man, since Danzig, since you left Danzig, you've had your own body of music that you've created that's been kind of across the board. You had I know you had an instrumental record, or like a punk record, or even kind of like the name appropriate titled kind of country record, and
right.
And also you put out your book, Camera Obscura, which was highlighted your early days of photography. What do you got going on nowadays?
Yeah, I'm still working on the second book. I've been painting full time since 1999, so that's a good 20-something years.
Yeah.
So I sell my paintings. I've done a couple album covers for people. But yeah, I've probably done 400 or more paintings, and I've sold almost every one. The second book I really want to get out. I'm also trying to do a book of the paintings. I also have a character I want to do for a children's book. It's about a little witch. And I just thought it would be really awesome if I could sort of impress a certain thought process, onto the younger generation. You know what I mean? Like, because I remember the books I read as a child, and they kind of stick with you.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to do this children's book, and I always thought it'd be cool for me to be in something with a bunch of kids all around me looking up at me as I read about this little witch and try to infect their brains.
Sure. Yeah.
But and I'm working on my 6th record, so I recorded it in Nashville with a bunch of people that I like. I would have put out another record before, but like life got in the way, And I could never find anybody who wanted to help me make my record, the record I wanted to follow up from Kind of Country. I did that all by myself. I did all, so far, except for this record, I played all the instruments, wrote all the songs, did all the singing and everything on every record. And this time I wanted to play with other people, and I would say, here's the song. This is how it goes. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I finally, just as we're about to leave, when COVID was just, the shit was really hitting the fan, we left Nashville because of that, too much crime, and the housing was just, the rent was going up crazy. We couldn't afford it anymore. So, but right before I left, this friend of mine says, well, I got a studio at my house, or this friend of mine's got a studio. Why don't we, record those songs you want to do, for your new record? So quick did like a week's worth of stuff, and then I moved. So they had and then I gave them all my demos, and they would just go through everything, and they would go, oh yeah, this friend of mine, he's working, because the guy was building like a studio apart from his house. And he's like, yeah, guy's here. He's helping me put up drywall or whatever. He plays drums. I want him to play on this one. We got this one version of this, that, and the other thing. I said, sure, go ahead. So he'd be like, oh yeah, we did like 3 or 4 takes. Came out great. I'm like, okay, cool. So then he calls me a week later and he goes, oh, I got this guy. He's here laying roof paper or whatever. He's got a Hammond B3 in his garage, and I'm going to take the laptop over there, and he's going to lay some B3 down on this one song. I'm like, oh, cool. And then he would tell me, oh, it sounds great. He goes, oh, this one song. He goes, you know that one song? That should be a bluegrass song. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I like bluegrass, but it's like you can only take so much of it,
Yeah.
So he says, no, it's got to be done. So, and this is the guy. He's basically the producer, and he plays a lot of guitar on it. But I really like him. He knows exactly what I want, and so I would say, okay. So he brings a guy in to play mandolin and fiddle, and they worked off of my demo and just sped it up and did a bluegrass arrangement on it. So then I come down next time. I lay down some vocals, do some stuff, play do some live takes, and then I go back up to Kentucky. And then he goes, oh, I had this one chick come by and I did to sing a little background, a little harmony on this one track. I'm like, okay,
So it's really it's taken a life of its own based on whoever just kind of comes into the project.
Yeah, and see, the whole thing is what I wanted from the beginning was I wanted to do a record where each song is different from the last one, but it still has a cohesiveness to where it would all fit under like one cover,
Yeah.
So that's what it is, and it's not really country, but it's not country. Yeah. It's still basically blues country and with the punk rock attitude still in there,
Yeah. So it's a good follow up to the Kind of Country.
And people are going to be blown away by some of the stuff. And like I said, every song is different, and the guys who are mainly doing it, the engineer and the producer, are both musicians. So they just love to go, oh, let me play bass on this. Oh, let me play drums on this. Or I got a guitar part for this. So I'm like, okay, good, just do it. And I'm like, if it's no good, we're not using it.
Yeah.
Whatever. And he's just like, oh, I got a guy to come play pedal steel on this one track that's just me and guitar, and it just needs. I wanted violin, but he says, no, pedal steel's going to sound great on this. So I was like, yeah, a guy came in, did like 4 passes, and we're just going to choose from them. And so basically what I have to do now is go down and just mix it and finish it up. Maybe tweak a couple of vocals here and there, or do some harmony or backup track. But that's it. The stuff I think it's pretty much all been tracked over a period of time. And the stuff that he was sending me and the enthusiasm is so great that I'm just like, good. I didn't say, hey, because the songs were all done. I had them all demoed. I played everything on them, and then he used that as like a template. And if I wasn't there, they said, really like this one song, we're going to cut it. And when you come down, you just do your parts or play on this or do whatever.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, we'll cut it again, you know?
Sure.
So, but it's really, I'm hoping I can mix it good enough to where it's the record that I really wanted to make.
Yeah.
And it just took forever most people just wanted to put their name on my record or have my name on their, basically, you know, yeah, I played on Eerie's record, but they didn't want to make the record I wanted to make.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, this one is going to be people are just going to be really shocked and they're going to say, well, it's really cool because there are a lot more people like Kind of Country than I thought they would. And I didn't really know. I just wrote the songs that I had just accumulated a bunch of songs that were kind of country.
Yeah.
And so that's why I called it that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't sit down and say, hey, I'm going to write a country album because I never do that.
So were those songs that accumulated like in between other projects? Like did you file it
exactly.
Like, oh, this one's going to go in the Kind of Country file and get to that?
Yeah, well,
project?
see, that's the same thing. Well, I learned that from Glenn because Glenn, you know, like when you're a songwriter, you just write songs, you know.
Yeah.
So if something's good, he used to say, "Yeah, I got this song I just wrote the other day, but it's not good for this album, or it's not good for this band, or I'm going to give it to so and so, or whatever." Yeah. Or Ruben would call him up in the old days and say, "Hey, I'm doing a thing with Roy Orbison. Do you got a Roy Orbison song?" Glenn goes, "Yeah, I got a Roy Orbison song." He said, "Okay, come on down to the studio and show it to him. Where you got a Johnny Cash song?" He's like, "Yeah, I got a Johnny Cash song." So I've done the same thing since I started writing seriously, which is pretty much all from Danzig. And you'd be like, "Oh, well, this is a punk rock song. Well, I might as well finish it and maybe do a demo of it, and then I'll just put it on the shelf, you know?"
Yeah.
And so I had a bunch of punk rock songs. I had a bunch of country songs. And so I put out a punk rock record. And then I was just like, well, I'm going to put out these because this seems to be what's coming out, and I'm having fun with it. And it's really kind of new for me, you know, to just do stuff like that. So then I was just like, yeah, I'm putting it out. And I put out whatever I want because I don't have to worry about selling records because nobody buys them anyway. I don't give a shit. I'm just doing this stuff for me.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and so I'm really excited about this record. Plus I want something to listen to. You know,
sure.
The songs are really good, and I want to fucking drive around and listen to them.
Dude, isn't it crazy that Nashville is such a music-oriented city that, like, you can have a guy coming in to put sheetrock up in your studio, and then he's ended up playing fucking steel guitar or fucking keys or something on your fucking project.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. Because
you can find players on Angie's List or whatever.
Yeah, everybody is a musician. Like if you go into a bar or a club or whatever, the bartender is a musician. He's just bartending so he can pay rent.
Yeah,
you know, the waitress is a musician. Everybody and his brother. The guy who's mowing the lawn, yeah, he's really a musician.
Yeah, yeah.
And the guys in Nashville, they don't just play one thing. They play like guitar, bass. They can play mandolin, or they play fiddle. They play guitar. They can play drums. Like everybody plays everything. So that's what I love about it. Like I didn't get the ideal like 5 guys in a room recording live, but I got like 3 guys in a room recording live.
Yeah.
You know. So
and then players from all different backgrounds coming in and out.
Yeah, and then people coming in and they were digging it too, because like the guy who's the producer is a very likable guy, and he knows a lot of people. And he said, yeah, everybody digs it. Like I played him a song, or I played him some of the stuff. Everybody really likes it. So they're all playing and all doing it for free. You know, which is the big thing, because I was trying to get numbers and stuff when I was in Nashville. I would see a fiddle player. I would say, you got a card? What do you charge? And they would say, oh, $60 a song or whatever, you know. I'm like, okay, I might call you. So I was trying to do that, but he knew so many people that it was just like, yeah, just a friend of mine. I just told him to come down, and he brought his fiddle, and he played on like 2 songs, and maybe we'll use it, maybe we won't, or whatever. But everybody really digs it. So I'm looking forward to what people, if people like it, but if they don't, I don't give a shit either. But I'm thinking they will. But I want, you know, I really just want to have, you know, this could be the last record I ever make. That's the way I always look at it. So I want to make this great record, and I think I'm almost there. So that's been keeping me going. And I started playing guitar like full time, I don't know, 1.5 years ago. I played every day since I bought a guitar I mean, I always played guitar, but I just did enough that I could demo or record my songs.
Yeah.
But now I'm playing like all the time, and I'm starting to have like relationship with my guitar.
Sure.
Before I didn't really care. It was just like, some bass. I like this bass better than that one, but I don't like fall asleep with it. You know what I mean? It's not like Keith Richards or something. But now, in the last, say, year and a half, 2 years, I'm really playing a lot, and I feel comfortable doing it. So if I get to go out and play these songs, I'll probably be playing guitar, bass, acoustic guitar. Who knows?
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, we'll probably wind up doing some shows here and there. I'll just go down to Nashville and put a band together. We'll do some shows. But I probably won't do any touring or anything. But it'll we'll videotape it, so we'll put out. Somebody will get to see it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, you should. And that was one of the other questions I was going to have. Is like, I know you've had a lot of studio projects. Have you done much gigging or touring at all since you left Danzig?
No, I had my biggest problem with going back on the road, even all these years, is my back. I fucked up my back when I was in Danzig because it worked out like every day, and I thought I had a weak lower back. Turns out I was fucking up my spine, and I've got like degenerative spine, like I don't know, disease or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But like in the very beginning, it was like 1989, 1990. The pain got so bad when I was on the road and stuff, I couldn't walk. And I used to have to drink myself to sleep because the pain was so bad, and that's how I started becoming alcoholic.
Yeah.
But I had one leg was like 2 inches shorter or an inch shorter than the other, and I was in pain constantly. So I went to a chiropractor. I felt better the minute I got out of the place, and then I went for the next couple of years, and I couldn't work out anymore. I couldn't headbang like I used to because the headbanging and the weightlifting is what totally fucked up my spine. And I've got like in between your vertebrae, you have the little spongy discs,
Yep.
to keep you so there's a cushion. Well, I've got like 3 or 4 of them that are like dead. Like there's no liquid or they're not spongy anymore. They're like rocks. They're just, so I have like tremendous pain that will keep me from being able to walk or get out of bed for like 2 days, 3 days at a time.
Yeah.
So I can't even, everybody's always like, oh, well, what about doing a Danzig reunion and stuff? And like Glenn's like going to be 67. I'm going to be 58. We're all around,
Yeah.
I couldn't honestly see it getting on a bus and playing every night. I don't even know if I could walk every day.
Yeah.
So I haven't been able to tour, but I do acoustic shows once in a while with me and another guy, or just by myself. Or we do like we do some horror conventions, and I might do some songs, or just do stuff, just sit and sign people's records and do all that shit. I've done that over the years, but I also don't have a big desire to go back and play clubs unless it's on my terms. Because when you play clubs, there's guys that never got out of the clubs that treat you like a fucking jackass who's never done anything. And he's like, yeah, I don't have time to tell you how much shit I've done. Okay. Yeah. So I don't really have a desire. I'm really happy with all the stuff that Danzig did and the shows and the level we got to, that like, I can say, yeah, I did that. I played in front of 200,000 people. I played in front of 100,000. I did this. I did that. We got gold records. You got platinum records. It's like, I don't really, so all this time I didn't sit around going, well, I wish I could be doing that again. I was like, I already did it. I don't have to.
Yeah.
So, so I'm okay with that. But I will, if it's something totally new and has nothing to do with the other band, yeah, I'll probably wind up doing some shows. But I don't really care if I don't or not,
Yeah. And outside of your new project, you got any, and do you feel like you got any more metal or punk records in you?
Let me see I was going to do, I might still put out a compilation. There's some more of the spooky kind of stuff that I was doing, like my Bad Dream record and the Blood in the Body, things like that, more gothy kind of spooky
Gothy
shit.
Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I have that stuff that's just natural to me. I always looked at it as a sort of like just a real dark blues kind of shit.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of spooky. But I've got like some unreleased stuff there, and I was going to do a compilation of like the first 3 or 4 records, and with the unreleased stuff, and just put like a CD out or whatever, so people, because all my records are out of print, so they can just get a nice overview of the spooky stuff, and then I'm probably putting out like a Rosemary's Babies 12-inch, like of all the album tracks, with one of the ones that got left off the CD and stuff like that. Yeah. But it's never been on a 12-inch.
Rosemary's Babies had a 7-inch. I remember that 7-inch. And then didn't later you guys put everything on a CD or something?
Yeah, for the 20th anniversary or 25th anniversary, whatever it was. Yeah, I had to go back and we had to bake the tapes, and I mixed. I was in Florida at the time, so I had to mix because I had the masters. I gave them to the bass player. He had them taken to a studio, transferred, and I had to mix the thing like through by computer and over the phone. Wow. And I made like pages and pages of notes of like how I wanted this to sound and this and all that. And when it came out, I was really, really happy with it. So yeah, that had everything except one song that must have gotten burned when the tapes were in the oven or just misplaced or something. It was only like 26 seconds long, but it was the only song that the singer actually wrote. So I got it off the record and I did like an edit. So it's on there. It's going to be on the 12-inch. It's just an album version of the CD. But it's on vinyl and it's got a different cover, and that people seem to like that these days.
Oh, absolutely!
But I'm not,
yeah.
But I told the guy, because we're only doing like 500. I said, but I'm not doing colored vinyl. Like, everybody's doing colored vinyl. I said, that's why I don't want to do it.
Yeah, a black record is the rarest kind of record now.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. I said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put a sticker on it. It's going to say limited edition colored vinyl. Black, and I hopefully that'll happen because it was up to me. I don't want to. Everybody's doing, even bootleggers are doing colored vinyl and splatter vinyl. So it's not a novelty anymore. Now it's become what everybody does. And as soon as something like that happens, my punk rock ass goes the other way, just like always. Everybody's got a shaved head. I'm growing my hair out. Yeah. Everybody's got a mohawk. I'm going to shave my head. It's just you can't change who you are.
Absolutely.
Some guy, when I was in Nashville, I'm at this place called the National Palace. It's a real touristy kind of trap. It's fucking hysterical, but it's great. So I'm there, cowboy hat, cowboy boots, and a Ramones shirt. This guy comes up to me, and goes, "What the hell is going on? Cowboy hat and a Ramones shirt?" I said, "Can't change who you are."
Exactly. Yeah.
And when I did a radio show in Nashville for like a year, and we just playing all local shit, and friends of mine that were still doing bands were playing their latest CDs and stuff. But everybody who was coming through town and the young kids in Nashville, they all grew up on the Misfits and punk rock and stuff. So they're all doing like the underground or outlaw country or whatever.
Yeah.
They grew up on the Misfits and Johnny Cash and like Hank Williams. So I thought that was great because that's kind of the same thing. That was all my influences, just in a different direction. Like I didn't grow up on Johnny Cash, but I kind of grew up on the Misfits, and I heard Johnny Cash, or whatever. So, but these guys grew up on Hank Williams, and then they heard the Misfits. So it's really neat. Most of those guys are just doing what I like, punk rock country, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. The first guy I was exposed to like that was actually Hank 3. Was you could tell he was like a punk rock kid, but Hank Williams' grandson, and was doing country.
Yeah,
what I mean?
And he
good mix.
And he loved the Misfits. Yeah, and he loved the Misfits. And he did some songs with Glenn. And that guy who's doing my record, he went to school with him, and he's about 45, 48. So they're all at the right age. That's what happens. If you stick around long enough, everybody who was a 15-year-old kid is now like 35 or 40. and then they're like, oh, I got to buy that Beware record because I lost mine in a fire,
Yeah.
or like, oh, now I'm the head of a record company. I could put out Eerie Vaughn's record.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's how the book came out, because the guys at Dark Horse were all fans, and they were all of a sudden they were in a position to where they could say, yeah, we'll put out Eerie's book.
Yeah, because that was cool, because it was a comic book company. You put out your first the first press of your book, and then it came out again on a different the represses were on a different it did like 3 or 4 printings, and then the contract ran out. Okay.
And I said, well, I want to take it somewhere else, so I did, and it's been in print for like 10 years or more.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, we haven't gone through a paperback, but
you shouldn't. With a photography book, you just keep it a hardcover, man.
I know, but see, and the thing that I liked about the book is, I have a lot of problems with it, but the thing I liked the most was that it's not a big giant coffee table book that you look at once and then put it down because it's too heavy. Yeah. Like you could pick up my book and read it in an hour, and then 3 months from now you can pick it up and read it again, because it's all the stories are fun, the pictures are cool. I'm really happy that it's not a book that you just look at and then never look at again. And the next one is going to be the same size. It's going to be like a companion to that.
Good.
It's just going to be, but all the pictures are going to be like pristine museum quality. Like, this is exactly the way that when I took them that day, this is what they look like.
Yeah.
So it is not going to be as much bullshit. And like, I already told the stories. So, there'll be captions, but not as much text.
Sure.
But yeah,
you said it's going to feature a lot of your painting artwork too, right?
No, the painting book is going to be a whole separate book.
Oh, a whole separate book. Okay, so this is just a second to camera obscure, more like the.
Yeah, this is going to be the follow up to that.
Okay.
And that'll probably be it until I have to go through, or if anybody else, if we keep like they do with the Elvis books and all that stuff, you have to keep them in the public eye, or else people will forget. That's why every year there's a new Elvis Christmas album, even though it's the same 50 Christmas songs he recorded. They just put them in a different thing, put on a different cover. But every year there's some new audience showing up buying that Christmas album or buying that Elvis record. So that same thing has to happen with the Misfits and the Danzig and things like that. If the records don't keep rolling over and you don't keep saying, hey, look how cool this was, remember this shit, then people will just forget.
Yeah.
So the next book's going to come out. I mean, the Misfits did their reunion. Everything is just like keeping it going. And then Glenn's probably going to he's probably going to retire. He's only going to do one-off shows here and there. Might do a couple more Misfit shows. But Jerry will still be out there. Yeah. He'll still be doing it until they put him in the grave. Yeah, and then Doyle's doing his thing, and Doyle's expanding his empire, to like energy drinks and hot sauce and guitar strings, whatever, So we'll probably see Doyle on he'll be a motivational speaker before you know it,
Mm-hmm. Are you
see him on
you still in contact with any of those guys?
Yeah. I still talk to Jerry. I called Jerry not that long ago. I asked him if he had any of those Madison Square Garden posters.
Yeah.
I was just like, dude, I really like that poster. I just want to have one of those, because I didn't go.
Yeah.
I couldn't. Yeah, I was nowhere near that. Nobody was paying for my ticket. I couldn't fucking fly there.
Yeah.
So I really like the poster. And the Garden is a very special place.
Sure.
For all of us there. And he said, I'll have to check. And that was the last I talked to him. I haven't talked to Doyle in a while, but I run into him either when he plays a show or at one of those conventions or whatever. And every time we get together, it's just like no time has passed, and we're still stupid 15, 20, 18-year-old kids or whatever.
Yeah.
And he did. Last time I talked to him, he was showing me some exercises for my back, and he went totally vegan, and he's been vegan for like 5 years now or more. And so, but we still can't stop like laughing and goofing around whenever we get together. It's just,
It's good, man. It's good.
I talked. I don't know. Pete. I still hear from Pete from Samhain. We're on Facebook back and forth here and there. And that's about, Frank Licata from the old Misfit days. Mr. Jim, Joey Image before he passed,
Yeah.
Bobby Steele. I still talk to Bobby when I see him. You know, so yeah, we're all part of this like weird fraternity, sort of. You know.
Yeah. Now, no, I know we talked about like you kind of addressed like Danzig stuff. No plans for any more Samhain reunions or one-off shows or anything.
Oh no, not for me. I mean, they asked me to do the first one, and the Samhain reunions have been going on since 1999.
Yeah. No, that's what I meant more for you. You know what I mean?
No, well, but yeah, they said, you want to do this? I said, yeah, I'll do it if Pete does it. Pete said no, so
yeah,
they never asked me after that, and I'm like, yeah, come on, and they just look ridiculous. And I also said, I worked off really, really hard to get my hair to be this long and this white.
Yeah.
And I ain't shaving, and I'm not pouring blood on my head at 50 years old. Forget about it. I was like, you want to go out there and do that and pretend you're still, 20 years old? Go right ahead. But I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So, and it's Glenn and two drummers,
Yeah.
So whatever.
Cool. Well, where can people? I appreciate all the time, man. We're a couple hours into this. Where can people find out more information about you and all the stuff you got going on? Because you've stayed super active, man. Like, you got any websites or like social media that you wanted to promote?
Hold on. Yeah, I just tell people to email me. It's Eerie Vaughn 777@gmail.com. I answer all my mail. I have since, I don't know, 83. But I'm on Facebook. I have a fan page and I have a regular page. If you want to find me, all you got to do is Google. Just type in Eerie Vaughn, you'll find me.
Oh yeah.
But I have a site, but we haven't really like done anything with it. And everything I sell, like parts of my collection or books, or like I still have Rosemary's Babies records I sell once in a while because I still have copies. I do that all. It's all one-on-one.
Sure.
When I make the photos, I just sold a bunch of photos last month. That every so often I have to make prints for a convention or whatever, and I have some photos left over, so then I make them available to the public. But that's all like, you want one, you get in touch with me. That's it. It's all one-on-one shit.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. Well, what I'll do too is in the show notes, I'll put your email. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you, you don't have to remember it, but it's pretty easy to remember anyway. EerieVaughn777@gmail, but I'll put it in the show notes. So,
that's fine. That's generally the way it goes. And eventually I'll have it. I'm pretty sure I have EerieVaughn.com somewhere.
Yeah.
So, but we just haven't really, the old lady works, and I don't know enough about the computer. I can email and I can do this, but I can't open this up. I can't do that. I mean, I'm a typical 58-year-old guy. Doesn't know what the fuck's going on when it comes to computer. You know what I mean? I'm still part of the dumber, pre-computer generation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey man, you it doesn't matter. You make music. That's what you do. Any timeline on the release of that record that you're working on, or do you not really?
Well, it's just like the book. I would have liked to have it done a year ago, but it's just the way it's worked out. No, as soon as I get it mixed, I'm going to press hard copies because I can't sign a download. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I do conventions and people want to buy a CD, so I'm going to make hard copies, and I'll probably make some songs available. I probably aren't going to do any Spotify or any of that shit because it's a nightmare. The artist gets fucking dicked we get like 3 cents and they get $1, or whatever. And you get a mountain of these 7-cent checks and $11 checks or whatever.
Yeah.
Fuck that. Yeah. So I'll probably make it so you can hear it, but you can't download it. You're going to have to buy it from me. So, and that's fine. I can make back my costs if I sell 100 copies. So that's all I need to do. That means I can press another record just by doing that. I don't need to sell 1 million copies.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine, fine. I really like being in that position. It's the same position that Paul McCartney's in because you know what? He doesn't care if he sells any records either.
No. Yeah. Yeah. He's a little bit different kind of position, but yeah, the same attitude for sure.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's the only way you stay sane. You can't care about stuff like that. And I'm going to do this. I'm a painter, basically. I've been painting for 20-something years every day. It's like, if I sell them or not, I'm still going to do it because, that's the line from Frida. It says you'll paint because that's what you do. You'll paint till you die, and the same thing with music. You can't turn it off. Like you pick up a new guitar or you write a new song. It just happens.
Yeah.
Or the guitar sits there and it keeps telling you, pick me up. What are you doing? So you can't not do it. It's just the way it goes. So in that way, I still think it's funny. It's the joke. He doesn't care if he sells any records either.
Absolutely. One quick question from one of my Patreon subscribers, Jake Richards, and
you got patrons?
Oh yeah, dude, just a little, but they're a small in number but dedicated motherfuckers.
Very good.
He's out in Portland, Oregon, but he wanted to know what kind of bass rig you're running, or were you running when you were in Danzig, or what do you run now as far as?
Yeah, I don't. Since I don't do any gigs, I don't. I didn't make it out of Danzig with any gear, to tell you the truth. My backline was Ampegs and SVTs. I used the 810 cabinets. What was it? Was that it? No, were they 10s or were they 80s? I don't know. It's the same thing that Dee Ramone used, the same thing that Jerry Only used, and that's the reason I used it, because I like the way it sounded, and I like those two guys playing bass. So I'm like, I'm going to use that stuff, And what the hell? I only play Fender jazz basses. I use nickel round wound strings, and that's it. I play a Fender right into an Ampeg, and it sounds great, And I never had any effects. Anything you might hear is either most likely the way I'm playing it, or how old the strings are, like on records stuff, or just the sounds you get out of the instrument. So when I was in Samhain, I played it through a PV 215s with a PV head, and played a Fender jazz bass, but never really. Only put some maybe something to boost the volume during like leads or something, but no effects. Just Fender straight through an Ampeg and SVT.
Nice. And you're a Fender jazz guy, huh?
Yep, I tried the Precision first because that's a punk rock bass,
Yep.
And my favorite bass player from Motown played a Precision, but I didn't like the neck. It felt funny. It did, like, got stuck in my hand. I said, it's too thick. It's almost like a Gibson neck, So I picked up the jazz bass. I said, this is the one.
There you go.
And that was it.
And you found what you needed. You found what you liked and stuck with it.
Yeah, and when I buy guitars, I play Fender Telecasters. That's what I like. The neck, and it's the same thing. I like the maple neck the most. My first Samhain bassist I still have is a maple neck. So
hell yeah. Well, dude, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, with me and all the listeners tonight. I'm sure this is going to go over good and people will be stoked about it. I'm just going to shut this off here, but I'm not going to hang up, okay? Hold on one second.
Okay.
O'Reilly. Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan. It's free and provides a report with solutions based on over 650 million vehicle scans verified by ASE certified master technicians. And if you need help, we can recommend a shop for you. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Whether you're looking to build a website for your business, your hobby, your podcast, or just for fun, Peer Networks is your go-to web hosting partner. Not only do we have the lowest domain price in the industry, starting at just $11, we've got hundreds of stunning website templates to help you stand out from the crowd. You're not a techie? Not a problem. With our easy DIY site builders, you can launch your impressive website without any technical know-how. And when it comes to security and updates, don't worry, we've got you covered. Our 24/7 US-based customer support is the best in the industry. Check out pair.com today to learn more. PAIR.com.